Chapter 354. Ning Tian pondered for a moment, then shook his head. No need. You guys can handle this. It's a rare opportunity. I'll go take a look at the Chaos Emperor city. And Hongyi and Elder Tianfeng were silent for a moment before they looked at Ning Tian solemnly. Ancestor, you can't be thinking of tearing down the city, right? You can't do that. The Chaos Emperor city is the biggest city in the Firmament territory. You can't tear it down. Both of them tried their best to persuade Lin Fan. Tear it down? When did I tear it down? Ning Tian chuckled. Don't worry, I'm just here to take a look at the primal Chaos Emperor city. And Hongyi and Elder Tianfeng were stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. Haven't you torn down enough ethereal immortal mountain? Okay, Elder Tianfeng and I will look for you guys when the time comes. And Hongyi smiled bitterly and shook her head. She looked at the girls beside her and asked, Yu Ling, Tianxiang, what about you guys? Yu Ling was stunned for a moment. She stole a glance at Ning Tian and said, I'll walk around with you, Founder. Me too. There was no need to talk about Yu Qin. This girl simply didn't want to cause trouble. She loved to play and couldn't be stopped at all. Tianxiang, what about you? And Hongyi's gaze fell on Tianxiang, who had been silent all this time. Tianxiang was silent, but she eventually shook her head. Okay, let's go. Ning Tian said casually, then led Yu Ling and Yu Qin into the Chaos Emperor city. Soon, they disappeared into the crowd. The three of them watched in silence. At this moment, Hongyi glanced at Tianxiang and said softly, Tianxiang, if you want Founder to help your clan, I think you should say it as soon as possible. After all, Founder is a big shot, and he may not stay here forever. Tianxiang bit her red lips and fell silent for a long time. Sigh. Seeing this, Hongyi sighed and left with the two of them. Within the Chaos Emperor city, Ning Tian led the two women through the crowd. However, soon, he realized a problem. The primal Chaos Imperial city was simply too big. If they wanted to explore the entire city in one go, they wouldn't have enough time. Thus, he decided to bring the two girls directly to the most prosperous area. Very soon, the three of them finally understood the Chaos Emperor city. This place indeed fit the name of Primal Chaos Emperor City. It was indeed the great primal chaos. There was everything, medicine, weapons, and even cat-demon maids. This Primal Chaos Emperor City is so fun. I want to stay here. Yu Qin's face was filled with yearning, and her large eyes were filled with desire. There are so many resources here. Roar, roar! The fire-sealing Lion King in her arms also nodded solemnly, agreeing with her words. There were indeed a lot of resources. You should have asked Master to arrange 2 cat demon maids for me. Unfortunately, the idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. At the side, Moon Spirit shrugged. Woo woo, senior sister, you are so cruel. Yu Qin pouted. Moon Spirit only chuckled. No wonder it's called the Chaos Emperor City. It's indeed the biggest city of the human tribe in the Firmament territory. Ning Tian chuckled as she watched the two girls bicker. She then looked around and sighed. The more the ancestral master was interested in the Chaos Emperor City, then, the more dangerous the Chaos Emperor City was. Yes, yes. Moon Spirit and Yu Qin both nodded. Ancestral Master, what are they doing over there? It's so lively. At this moment, Yu Qin looked at the sea of people not far away, and a glint of excitement flashed across her eyes. Watching the fun? She was the best at this. Ning Tian was taken aback. He looked over and suddenly sensed something. Is this an immortal herb? He frowned slightly. Its aura was a bit like an immortal herb, and its medicinal properties were quite extraordinary. Currently, his alchemy Tao was still at the pinnacle. If he wanted to take another step forward and reach the peak, he would have to challenge more powerful elixirs. Perhaps this immortal pillar herb was a good herb. Let's go take a look. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth lifted slightly as he said to the two. Since they were already here, they might as well take a look. Really? Yuqin's eyes widened when she heard this. Yes. Ning Tian smiled and nodded slightly. Oh yeah. Ancestral Master is the best. Yuqin chuckled and rushed over excitedly with the Sealing Flame Lion King in her arms. Yuqin was the only one who would miss a good show. Ning Tian and Moon Spirit glanced at each other when they saw this, and then they smiled before following him. But when the three of them approached, they saw a vendor sitting at the center of the sea of people. On the table was a white jade immortal herb in a jade box. It emitted waves of medicinal fragrance that intoxicated people. In the crowd, Ning Tian and the other two stood out from the crowd and came to the front. Seeing the white jade immortal herb on the table, Ning Tian narrowed his eyes slightly and carefully examined it. Then, he nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. A 10,000-year-old white jade flower is barely usable. At the side, the passers-by couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard this. He made it sound as if the immortal herb was his if he was satisfied. At this moment, seeing that it was about time, the vendor slowly opened his mouth and introduced his rules. Thank you for your support, fellow cultivators. I don't want money or items here. I only want one word, battle. Compete with the 5 disciples behind me. If you win, take the immortal herb. If you lose, give me something of the same value. As soon as he said this, the surrounding people were instantly in an uproar. It was the first time they had seen such a competition of Tao attainment. How confident must he be to be so arrogant? Interesting. Ning Tian's mouth lifted slightly. This vendor seemed arrogant, but in fact it was not. Whether he won or lost, it would be of great help to him. If he won, it would be even more worth it. Although the surrounding people were tempted, they didn't dare to rashly try. Ha ha ha! Interesting. In that case, let my disciple spar with this fellow Taoist. At this moment, loud laughter rang out. Then, a few figures riding flying pigs slowly descended and appeared in front of the crowd. It's Taoist priest flying pig. It's a little strange. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen someone riding a pig. Cough cough, his pig is different. That's a flying pig. Seeing these strange people, the surrounding people were in an uproar. There's actually someone riding a pig. Yuqin was a little surprised. The flame-sealing lion king in her arms was drooling at the sight of the flying pigs. Fellow cultivator, why don't I give it a try? Taoist priest flying pig stroked his beard and looked at the vendor with a smile. Chapter 355. Oh! I didn't expect Taoist priest flying pig to come and try. The vendor seemed to have heard of Taoist priest flying pig's name. When he heard that Taoist priest flying pig wanted to try, he could not help but frown. However, he soon relaxed and laughed softly. Then, Taoist priest flying pig, please show mercy to your disciples. Ha ha! Taoist priest flying pig laughed. His fat belly shook a little as he stroked his beard. I'm afraid that's a little difficult. After all, the opponent is a disciple of the 5 Mountains sect. 5 Mountains sect. Is it the legendary 5 Mountains sect that has 5 8-star celestial emperors? It's said that the 5 sect masters of the 5 Mountains sect each master a Tao. Their attainments are very powerful. That's why they're called the 5 Mountains sect. I didn't expect it to be them. Hiss. Hearing Taoist priest flying pig's words, the surrounding cultivators' expressions changed as they all gasped. As expected of the Chaos Emperor City, good and bad people are mixed together. Even the vendors on the streets are from famous sections. At the side, Moon Spirit could not help but shake her head and sigh. Although the 5 Mountains sect could not be compared to the Ethereal sect, it was still considered a relatively large force. The corners of Ning Tian's lips curled up into a kind smile as she remained silent. I didn't expect Taoist priest flying pig to see through it at a glance. The vendor frowned slightly and shook his head. Then I can't hide it anymore. Taoist priest flying pig, please? This is a 10,000-year-old immortal herb, the white jade flower. I wonder if you have anything of the same value? That's easy. I have a lot of things. A few days ago, in an expert's ancient tomb, the Gu residence, I coincidentally obtained a 10,000-year-old immortal herb, the raging flame fruit. Taoist priest Flying Pig coughed dryly and took out a small jade bottle. Within the jade bottle, the red fruit seemed to be burning with a layer of flames. Everyone in the surroundings could feel the boiling heat. It's a 10,000-year-old immortal herb, the raging flame fruit. Seeing this, the surrounding gazes instantly became greedy and passionate. All right. Come, my precious disciples, come down. Prepare to spar with the disciples of the 5 Mountains sect. Flying Pig stroked his long beard and jumped down from the Flying Pig. The disciples behind him did the same. After hanging Flying Pig not far away, Taoist priest Flying Pig looked at the vendor. Please. The 5 Flying Pig disciples faced the disciples of the 5 sacred mountains. In an instant, a contest of Tao attainments began. Almost everyone's gazes were drawn over. 5 sacred mountains, 5 Tao attainments, fist, sword, palm, music, and the immovable mountain defense Tao. While everyone's gazes were focused on the stage, a man and a lion seemed to be discussing a shocking secret plan in an inconspicuous corner. Shabi, you said you want to eat that pig? Yuqin asked in a low voice. Roar, the ceiling flame lion king wrote the word lion. But, if I'm discovered, senior sister will definitely spank my butt. Yuqin pouted, a look of unwillingness on her face. After all, she was already so big, yet she was still being beaten. Wouldn't she lose a lot of face? Roar, the ceiling flame lion king shook its head as it wrote the word lion. You mean, it won't? If it's going to be beaten, it'll be the ancestor? Understanding the ceiling flame lion king's meaning, Yuqin didn't know why, but she was a little tempted. Cough. She was definitely not tempted because she would be beaten by the ancestor. She was just interested in the flying pig. That's right. That's how it is, OV. At this time, just as Yuqin was about to make a move, the ceiling flame lion king wrote a heavy sentence. Born to be a lion with a big mouth, the Tao of eating is like a long night. Come eat. Yuqin was silent for a long time, then nodded heavily. I think what you said makes sense. Wait for me here, I'll go steal a few pigs. After saying that, Yuqin put down the ceiling flame lion king and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Roar. The ceiling flame lion king roared excitedly, waiting to eat the flying pig. The competition continued. In a competition of pure Tao attainments, the cultivator's Tao attainments were very high, so the fights were very exciting. Almost no one noticed what was happening. Why does this poor Taoist feel like he heard a scream? Flying Pig frowned slightly, but the competition on the stage was in full swing and had reached the most critical part. Winning or losing was directly related to his 10,000-year-old raging flame fruit, so he didn't care too much. Perhaps he heard wrongly. Ancestor, who will win? Moon's spirit was staring at the stage with full concentration, and didn't notice that her precious junior sister had quietly disappeared. Disciple Flying Pig will lose in less than 3 moves. Ning Tian said indifferently. So fast? When Moon's spirit heard this, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. After all, the competition was still tied. Defeating the opponent in 3 moves was a little too sudden. Many people frowned when they heard this. Ning Tian nodded slightly, too lazy to explain anything. His gaze once again fell on the stage. 1 move. 2 moves. There was 1 last move left. Priest Flying Pig, I won't keep you company. It was also at this moment that the vendor's lips curled into a smile. His disciples also didn't hold back at this moment and gave it their all. In an instant, the 5 disciples of 5 Mountains sect, Tao Yi, unleashed their full cultivation. Without any pressure, the Flying Pig disciple was instantly defeated. Just nice. It was the last move. Hiss, he got it right? It's luck, right? Seeing this scene, the group of people who had just heard Ning Tian's words couldn't help but frown even more and gasp. You have shocked a group of onlookers. Reward. Spirit energy cultivation plus 100. In his mind, the system's voice sounded. However, Ning Tian didn't take it to heart. After all, they were just onlookers. I didn't expect your 5 mountains sect disciple Dao Yi's cultivation to be so high. Priest Flying Pig had a bitter expression and handed over the 10,000-year-old raging flame fruit unwillingly. The previous few moves were just a test, right? Haha, that's right. The vendor of 5 mountains sect laughed and took the 10,000-year-old raging flame fruit. Priest Flying Pig, thank you. Seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators sighed repeatedly. As expected of the 5 mountains sect, the 5 Dao attainments that they specialized in were all shockingly powerful and far beyond everyone's imagination. Priest Flying Pig snorted. He brought the 5 disciples with him. He turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, he frowned slightly. It seemed that something was missing? Everyone, have you seen my flying pig? Priest Flying Pig frowned and looked at the surrounding people. I haven't seen your flying pig. The group of cultivators shook their heads repeatedly. They were all focused on watching the competition. Who would be so bored as to look at a pig? Strange. How could my flying pig disappear into thin air? Taoist Priest Flying Pig furrowed his brows. At this moment, the young girl's voice sounded. Ancestral Master, is the competition over? Oh. Chapter 356. The voice rang out while everyone was still silent. Instantly, whoosh, everyone's gazes simultaneously turned to look at him. He saw a charming young girl walking over. Most importantly, she was holding 2 fragrant pork knuckles in her hand. The roasted pork knuckles looked, smelled good. It was simply tempting. Seeing this scene and thinking about Yuqin's past, Ning Tian and Moon Spirit were silent for a moment before they immediately reacted. They immediately understood. Where did Taoist Priest Flying Pig's flying pig go? Perhaps Yuqin had taken them to the kitchen for a walk. Fellow Taoist Flying Pig looked at Yuqin and asked with a frown, Fellow Taoist, have you seen my flying pig? Cough cough. Yuqin happened to be taking a big bite of the pork knuckles. When she was asked this question, she immediately felt guilty and choked on the pork head. She quickly patted her chest and coughed a few times. Then, her mouth was covered in oil as she mumbled, I don't know. Maybe the Taoist priest's flying pig flew into the kitchen and accidentally died. Sigh. Taoist priest Flying Pig sighed. Where is this poor Taoist flying pig? Around them, a group of cultivators frowned. Are you sure your flying pig isn't in that girl's hands? Taoist priest, don't worry. Come, have a bite of pork knuckles. Yuqin patted Taoist Priest Flying Pig's shoulder with her oily hand and handed over a pork knuckles. Taoist Priest Flying Pig hesitated for a moment, then took a big bite. Tears flowed down his face. Sigh, I really think about what I eat. Taoist Priest, don't cry. As the saying goes, there are losses and gains. Only by knowing how to give up can you understand more. Awoo! Yuqin said as she bit into the pork knuckles. Her mouth was covered in oil. There are losses and gains. Only by knowing how to give up can you understand? Taoist Priest Flying Pig was stunned and fell silent for a long time. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he finished the pork knuckles in one go. Then, he looked excitedly at the confused Yuqin. Thank you, fellow Taoist. It's all thanks to your words. The question that has troubled me for many years has finally been answered. What a choice! Ah! Taoist Priest Flying Pig laughed out loud. The sorrow of losing his pig had disappeared in an instant. The surrounding cultivators, after a moment of silence, the cultivators' mouths twitched. How could this be? As long as you're happy. Yuqin was at a loss. Fellow cultivator, I'm Flying Pig. If you have any problems, you can come to the Flying Celestial sect to find me. I'll do my best to help. Taoist flying pig thanked Yuqin before laughing and leaving with the group of disciples. It seemed that, after losing his mount, the flying pig, he seemed to have gained a lot. Seeing this scene, Ning Tian and Moon Spirit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They never thought that Yuqin would steal a pig in exchange for a favor from the Flying Immortal School. Stealing from this pig was not a loss at all. After the flying pig Taoist priest and the others left, the surrounding people placed their focus on the vendor. Ha ha! I wonder who else is willing to give it a try. The peddler laughed so hard that his eyes narrowed. It had only been a few minutes. He had obtained a 10,000-year-old immortal herb. This was a great deal. Hearing this, the people who originally had the idea no longer had much interest. After all, Taoist priest Flying Pig had just revealed the vendor's identity. Who would be so stupid as to go up when they knew that the other party was invincible? Interesting. I wonder if this fellow cultivator can let me try? At this moment, a voice sounded. There was really a fool? Everyone was stunned and looked over. It's that handsome guy. Could it be that he's handsome despite being stupid? In an instant, the surrounding cultivators discussed animatedly and couldn't help but be curious. Fellow cultivator, are you willing to try? I wonder if there's anything good? When the vendor heard this, his eyes narrowed from smiling as he looked at Ning Tian and asked, "You'll know if you win against me." Ning Tian had a smile on his face as he chuckled. Hearing this, the vendor frowned. Could it be that the Five Mountain sect is afraid that I'll run away if I lose? The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled up slightly. Ha ha. The vendor smiled as a glint flashed across his eyes. Then, he nodded slightly and said, "Then please enlighten me." After saying that, the 5 disciples of the Five Mountains sect went up the stage again. Seeing this scene, Moon Spirit and Yuqin shook their heads and mourned for the Five Mountains sect vendor for a few seconds. Trying to take advantage of the ancestral master? There must be something wrong with his head. It's not me who's enlightening you, but... Ning Tian smiled and pointed at the flaming Lion King who was chewing on a pig trotter. He said with a smile, "It's him." Him? The vendor and everyone else were stunned. They all looked over. In an instant, their expressions changed slightly and became a little ugly. A demonic beast. Was he looking down on them? Fellow cultivator, are you trying to make fun of us? The vendor's face darkened immediately. An Emperor Realm aura emanated from his body and vaguely pointed at Ning Tian. A 1-star Divine Emperor Realm expert. Seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators' expressions changed drastically, and their eyes were filled with awe. Fellow cultivator, are you going to fight with me? The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled up into a smile. That kind smile instantly caused the surroundings to turn cold. The merchant's imposing manner instantly collapsed. The vendor was shocked. After sensing it slightly, his expression changed drastically. He couldn't see through it. He couldn't see through the person in front of him. In an instant, his attitude became respectful. This Tao. Senior, this junior wouldn't dare to do that. Senior? Didn't this mean that the handsome young man's strength was far above the vendor's? The surrounding people's expressions changed drastically, and they were shocked. You've shocked everyone. Spiritual Qi cultivation plus 1,000. So, do you have any objections now? Ning Tian had a smile on his face. Yes. This time, the vendor didn't even dare to fart and nodded repeatedly. Go, Shabi. It's time for you to show off. Ning Tian smiled and looked at the flaming Lion King. Roar. Roar. The flaming Lion King roared twice. Then, under everyone's gaze, it slowly grew to the size of a few meters and climbed onto the battle stage. Under everyone's gaze, the flaming Lion King slowly straightened its body and made a friendly gesture. Roar. Seeing this scene, everyone was silent for a long time, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Damn it. They were despised by a demonic beast? Damn it. The Five Mountains sect disciples' eyes were burning with anger. They had never seen such an arrogant and shameless demonic beast. They didn't know who it learned it from. Today they didn't believe it. In terms of Tao attainment, would it be inferior to a demonic beast? Chapter 357. But very quickly, when they saw the demonic beast in front of them take out a spirit sword with a calm expression, they didn't know why, but they felt that they had already lost and their confidence dropped by more than half. Hey! Are you kidding me? You're a demonic beast. What kind of sword Tao are you cultivating? When the sword light flashed and the sword chi was sharp, the moment the sealing flame Lion King transformed into a ruthless swordsman, the sword in the disciple's hand was instantly knocked down. He knelt on the ground with a blank expression and doubted life. The surrounding cultivators were also silent. Roar! The sealing flame Lion King roared, extremely excited. As expected, I, Master Lion, am the strongest. Next, under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, the competition turned into a one-man show for the sealing flame Lion King. One punch. He defeated the fist Tao disciple. One palm. The wind from his palm whistled, scaring the fist Tao disciple to tears. With the music Tao's east wind break, the surroundings instantly fell silent. *CK this. What the hell was going on? If a demonic beast could be so heaven-defying, then what was the point of them, cultivators, living? Hiss! The sound of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard. As the surrounding cultivators were more and more shocked by the sealing flame Lion King's ability, they also had a deep fear of the handsome young man who was smiling. Don't forget, the reason why that demonic beast was so heaven-defying was definitely related to its master. That meant that young man was even more terrifying. All four paths were victorious. There was still one path left, the path of defense that was as immovable as a mountain. The vendor was already sweating cold sweat. He had thought of losing to peerless geniuses, the Son of God, and so on, but he never dreamed that he, a disciple of the Five Mountains sect, would lose to a demonic beast in terms of Tao attainments. Roar! The sealing flame Lion King looked at the last disciple in front of it and was suddenly stunned. It felt a little flustered. It seems that I don't know how to defend. But at this moment, a golden light that only one person could see spread out. When it shone on the head of the sealing flame Lion King, it seemed to have understood something. Roar! At this moment, it let out a puzzled sound. It felt that it could do it again. I'm indeed a genius. I'm not afraid of demonic beasts being a genius, but I'm afraid of having a cheat behind me. Soon, after the last disciple of the Five Mountains sect was defeated, the surroundings were silent for a long time. Hiss! Then, the sound of gasps could be heard. The sealing flame Lion King raised its head proudly, ready to receive the shock and praise of the crowd. Come on, human, praise your master lion. However, almost everyone's gaze turned towards Ning Tian, who was standing to the side. Their eyes were filled with deep shock. So powerful! How did he teach a demonic beast to be so powerful? Could this be the strength of an expert? I just don't know if he needs any more demonic beasts. I have a human-shaped demonic beast here, by the side. The sealing flame Lion King pursed its lip. Master Lion King was just a tool lion. You have shocked the merchants of the Five Mountains sect. You've shocked everyone. Reward. The flame-sealing Lion King's strength has increased, and the Tao of beast taming has increased. It was also at this time. The system's voice rang in Ning Tian's mind. He chuckled and looked at the vendor. Now, can you give it to me? Senior, please. The vendor trembled and hurriedly handed the 10,000-year-old immortal herb to Ning Tian carefully. Ning Tian took it and then looked at the two girls. Moon Spirit Yu Qin, let's go. Okay, Ancestral Master. Moon Spirit was not too surprised by this scene. After all, no one could take advantage of the Ancestral Master. When the Ancestral Master took action, not even a blade of grass would survive. He would definitely not lose out. He The shabby Lion King is so powerful. Ancestral Master, Senior Sister, do you want to eat pork knuckles? Roar. Lion King, eat it later. This is for Ancestral Master and Senior Sister. The few of them went away, and laughter came from afar. The group of people stood rooted to the ground, staring blankly at the backs of the few people who left. Ancestral Master? Could it be that he was a great Emperor-level expert? At this moment, everyone's heart shook violently again. Soon, the news of an awesome demonic beast caused quite a stir in the Chaos Emperor city. Night came. Ning Tian did not choose to continue walking around the Chaos Emperor city. Instead, he found Enai Hongyi and Elder Tianfeng. After choosing a place to stay, he just had to wait for the Chaos Grand Meet to begin the next day. Sky blew in. Ancestral Master, the genius demonic beast mentioned in the Chaos Emperor city today. Could it be the Lion King? Enai Hongyi looked at the few people who returned with a strange expression. When they were looking for a place to stay, they heard about the story of the genius demonic beast. If I'm not mistaken, that should be the case, Ning Tian said casually. Hearing this, Enai Hongyi and Elder Tianfeng could not help but smile bitterly. As expected of the Ancestral Master, he could cause quite a stir wherever he went. However, the only thing worth rejoicing about was that the Ancestral Master had not opened it yet. Phew! Enai Hongyi heaved a sigh of relief and her beautiful eyes fell on Ning Tian. Ancestral Master, after tonight, the Chaos Grand Meet will begin. Elder Tianfeng and I have asked around. There is a high possibility that the God of Swords will appear. All right, I understand. Ning Tian nodded slightly and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Then, everyone should have a good rest tonight and prepare for tomorrow's Grand Meet. Yes, Ancestral Master. Everyone nodded and returned to their respective rooms. At night, stars dotted the sky. The entire Chaos Emperor realm ushered in a sleepless night. Everyone and all forces were preparing for tomorrow's Chaos Grand Meet. Sky blew in. In the room, Ning Tian sat cross-legged. In front of him, there was an alchemy cauldron made of wind and lightning. Under the burning alchemy fire, the spiritual herbs in the cauldron gave off a medicinal fragrance. The 10,000-year-old immortal herb that he obtained during the day was also in the cauldron. The spiritual herbs were constantly melting and solidifying, then burning and reshaping. The entire process went on. Until late at night. Boom! In the cauldron, the flames continued to burn. Within the flames, a crystalline silver antimony pill appeared in the cauldron. Beads of cold sweat had already formed on Ning Tian's forehead. Refining an immortal pill of this level had consumed a certain amount of his energy. Condense! He shouted in a low voice. The spiritual energy in his hands surged, and the alchemy fire in the cauldron boiled. Half an hour later, boom! The alchemy fire slowly dissipated. The medicinal fragrance wafted from the cauldron. Phew! Ning Tian heaved a long sigh of relief, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. It's finally completed. The spiritual herbs were completed. The system's voice also sounded at this time. The host's alchemy skills are extraordinary. He has broken through the alchemy Tao and reached the peak. When the system's notification rang out in his mind, indicating a breakthrough in his pill Tao, Ning Tian revealed a satisfied smile. He had finally reached this level of attainment in his pill Tao. Just as he was about to put away the cauldron, outside the door, a voice could be heard all of a sudden. Ancestral Master, it's me, huh? Seeing this, Ning Tian frowned slightly. It can't be, right? Another night attack? However, just as he was about to refuse, the graceful voice sounded again. Chapter 358. Under the moonlight, the fox had 4 tails that swayed in the wind. One could vaguely feel the urge to play with it. She is indeed from the Fox Demon clan. Ning Tian's gaze fell on the furry fox tail and fox ears. A glint flashed across his eyes. He had vaguely sensed an unusual aura. That aura was different from that of a human, perhaps. Was it because she was naked that her aura leaked out? However, he really wanted to grab her and play with her soft and furry appearance. Fortunately, he managed to hold back. Not at all. Ancestral Master, to be clear, she is from the charming Fox clan, not the Fox Demon clan. Hearing this, since entering the door, Tian Xiang refuted Ning Tian for the first time. There was a hint of arrogance in her eyes, as well as a hint of stubbornness. Ning Tian did not care too much. He just frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Is there a definite difference between the two? The Fox Demon clan is a complete branch of the Demon clan. My charming Fox clan is the strongest bloodline of the Fox Demon clan." Tian Xiang raised her snow-white neck slightly, and there was a hint of arrogance in her words. "If the members of my charming Fox clan cultivate 9 tails, they are comparable to godly state experts." However, her arrogance only lasted for a moment. Very soon, there was a trace of loneliness in her eyes. But at the same time, the charming Sky Fox clan is also a clan that has been abandoned. An abandoned clan? Ning Tian frowned slightly. Tian Xiang bit her red lips and nodded silently. However, she did not say anything clearly. "Okay. I know. You can go back." Ning Tian waved his hand and said casually. Tian Xiang looked at Ning Tian. Her red lips moved slightly as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not say what she wanted to say. She sighed faintly and turned to walk out the door. As she walked, she kept her fox tail and fox ears. Just as she was about to leave, a voice behind her reignited her hope. "Looking at you, even if there is trouble, it won't be now. So, see, maybe you can think of something better to move me. Or maybe, if fate wills it, I might change my mind. Alright, that's it. Help me close the door." Tian Xiang stood at the door of the room for a long time. In the end, he nodded silently. "Yes, Patriarch." With a creak, the wooden door closed gently. The enchanting Fox clan? Interesting. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth lifted slightly. If he was not mistaken, Anai Hongyi also knew about this matter. After all, Tian Xiang had stayed in the ethereal sect for a long time. It was impossible for her to not reveal some clues in front of a great emperor. The human race and the demon race were not at odds. However, that would depend on what kind of demon it was. If a beautiful fox demon like Tian Xiang was found out and fell into the hands of some humans, who knew what would happen to her? However, now that I think about it, this aura is really similar to that woman. Could it be that the two of them are related? If it was her, then this fate would have been formed long ago. In the room, Ning Tian shook his head slightly, sighed, and turned over to sleep. Tomorrow was the Chaos Grand Meet. Now was the time to rest and prepare. The next day, the entire Chaos Imperial City was livelier than before. Many people were heading to the center of the city, where the Chaos Sacred Altar was, where the previous Chaos Grand Meet was held. Sky blew in. "Ancestral Master, everything is ready." Everyone was ready. Anai Hongyi looked at Ning Tian and spoke softly. Ning Tian nodded slightly and swept his gaze across the group. Tian Xiang still had the cold look of the ethereal sect's eldest senior sister, as if nothing had happened last night. "Let's go," Ning Tian said to the group. "Yes, Patriarch." The Chaos Sacred Altar was a place that could accommodate 1,000,000 people. At this moment, nearly 100,000 cultivators had arrived. Life was bustling and there was a sea of people. There are so many people. I didn't expect the Chaos Sacred Altar to accommodate so many people. Somewhere, Ning Tian and the rest stepped into the Chaos Sacred Altar. Yuqin looked at the sea of people around and couldn't help but sigh. Of course. Anai Hongyi smiled. After all, it's said that the Chaos Sacred Altar was built by several godly state experts. It can accommodate 1,000,000 people. 1,000,000 people? Hearing this, the girls were a little surprised. "Sect Master, will there really be 1,000,000 people coming?" Moon Spirit raised her eyebrows and asked curiously. "Of course. And Hongi nodded, her beautiful eyes shining. She said softly, "The Chaos Grand Meet is held once every 1,000 years. If it weren't for the fact that the Chaos Sacred Altar can only accommodate 1,000,000 people, there would be even more people coming. Once every 1,000 years? I hope that God-child of 10,000 swords will appear soon and not waste my time." Ning Tian shrugged and said with an indifferent expression, "Given God-child of 10,000 swords' character, it doesn't suit him if he doesn't appear on such an occasion." And Hongi smiled and said, "Ancestral Master, come with me. Let's find a good seat first, then we'll talk about it in detail." "Okay." Next, the group walked toward the Chaos Sacred Altar. The entire Chaos Sacred Altar was a huge prototype building. It was an empty space and the seats were arranged in a circle from the lowest to the highest. Soon, Hongi led the group to the highest row. "Ancestral Master, this is the Chaos Jia seat." Everyone took their seat. Hongi explained softly. "The seats in the Chaos Sacred Altar are divided into 4 forces, A, B, C, and D. A is the highest and D is the lowest. Ethereal sect has 2 great emperors above the 7 tribulations, so we can squeeze into the A-class force." "I see." Ning Tian nodded slightly. He looked around and saw that most of the people were sitting in the first 3 seats. Only a few people were sitting in the A-class seat. After all, even in the vast firmament territory, great emperors were the most powerful existences. At this moment, Ning Tian seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Hongi and asked indifferently, "Then, where are the forces on the Chaos Imperial Region's ranking?" "Over there." Hongi pointed to a place. Ning Tian looked over. Not far from the Primal Chaos Holy Altar, there was a small building with 3 seats. 3 seats? Ning Tian raised his eyebrows slightly. "Yes." Hongi nodded and said again, "Ancestral Master, you're new to the firmament territory, so there are some things you don't know. Since the event hasn't started yet, let me explain it to you. However, I can also tell you some things about the Chaos Imperial Realm." "Okay, I'd like to hear more." Ning Tian nodded slightly. Hongi said slowly, "In fact, with your strength, other than the children of God and the hidden sects behind them, the only ones you need to be wary of are the 3 forces on the surface. The largest dynasty in the history of the human clan, the Infinite Divine Dynasty. The most mysterious secret pavilion. And the most arrogant void god celestial palace in the firmament territory." Chapter 359. Void God Heavenly Palace? Hearing this, Ning Tian could not help but smile. "Ancestor, you must not underestimate these 3 great powers. They are extremely terrifying, especially the limitless divine dynasty." Seeing Ning Tian chuckle, Hongi was afraid that he would let his guard down. "Oh, let's hear it." Ning Tian couldn't help but feel a little interested in the largest empire in the history of the human race. Since it was the largest empire in the history of the human race, it naturally had to be extraordinary. The Limitless God Dynasty has countless citizens and is the only one among all the dynasties that dares to use the word God in their name because they have a real God behind them. And there is more than one. Although I don't know the true strength of the Infinite Divine Dynasty, it is rumored that every 10,000 years, a true God will come to the deity realm. It has been at least hundreds of thousands of years since the Infinite Divine Dynasty was founded. From this, one can imagine how terrifying the people behind them are. Hongi said slowly, frowning. Her tone was solemn. "Hundreds of thousands of years. Then there are dozens of godly realm experts?" On the side, the expressions of Yuqin and the others changed slightly as a trace of deep shock flowed through their eyes. A flame-sealing Lion King trembled and turned into a small ball, curling up in Yuqin's arms. Dozens of godly realm experts, no wonder it was the largest dynasty in the history of the human tribe. Ning Tian frowned. It seemed that the infinite divine dynasty was the strongest force in the firmament territory. The void god heavenly palace was nothing in front of it. Perhaps the void god heavenly palace had some trump cards that they had not shown. However, there was also the heavenly secret pavilion. It seems that the Chaos Emperor realm in the firmament territory is already so exciting. How exciting would the eternal monster realm, the endless demon resentment, and the unknown sea region be? Ning Tian's eyes flashed with a bright light. If Ancestor Master were to venture out into the world, he would definitely leave his name behind. His name would spread far and wide. Elder Tian Feng chuckled from the side. The women beside her all looked at Ning Tian with bright eyes. Roar! Roar! The ceiling flame lion king roared and wrote in the shape of a lion. Oh, so you're still here, old man Tian Feng? If you didn't say anything, Master Lion would have thought that you weren't here anymore. You've finally said something. Not bad, not bad. Ahahaha. Elder Tian Feng scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. Perhaps? Ning Tian smiled and looked at Elder Tian Feng. Then, I'll be borrowing Elder Tian Feng's auspicious words. You flatter me, you flatter me. Elder Tian Feng hurriedly waved his hand. As they chatted for a while, more and more forces took their seats. The gathering of 10,000 sects might be far from just 10,000 sections. At the very least, the entire primal chaos holy altar, except for Seed A, was basically full. For a moment, there was a hubbub of voices as the sounds of discussion rang out continuously. Boom! Right at this moment, the sky suddenly changed color and turned dark. There seemed to be an angry roar in the sky. Then, a golden light flashed in the clouds and a pair of dragon horns appeared. The dragon's roar was deafening. That was a true dragon. Hiss! Instantly, the sound of people inhaling cold air could be heard. The king of the beasts, the dragon clan. Riding a dragon here. This is the Wuji dynasty. In an instant, the factions on the primal chaos sacred altar came to their senses. They raised their heads and looked up. Their eyes were filled with deep reverence. After all, this was the largest dynasty in the history of the human race. I didn't expect the Wuji dynasty to be so ostentatious. Riding a true dragon. Seeing this scene, Ning Tian's pupils constricted and he was a little surprised. According to the records, many of the true dragon clan had perished during the dark turmoil. Now, there were only a few left. The Wuji dynasty rode a true dragon, but thinking of this, Ning Tian glanced at the flame-sealing Lion King lying in Yuqin's arms with a look of enjoyment. She shook her head in disappointment. They were both demonic beasts, so why was the difference so great? Roar? The sealed flame Lion King seemed to have felt that gaze. Suddenly, it was a little unhappy. Master Lion King just hasn't grown up yet. When I grow up, I'll swallow that little dragon in one gulp, and it won't even be able to fill the gaps between my teeth. At this moment, in the sky, the golden dragon soared into the sky and landed heavily on the ground. Boom! When the 100-meter-long body landed, many cultivators almost fell from their seat. A wave of dragon's aura swept over, causing many to feel a strong pressure. Dragon General dispersed. At this moment, a majestic voice sounded. On the 100-meter-long body of the dragon, a man in an emperor's robe slowly appeared and said to the true dragon, "Yes, monarch." The true dragon spoke in human language. Then, with a dragon's roar, it rushed into the clouds and disappeared. A group of cultivators was left behind, looking at each other in shock. The man in the emperor's robe took a step forward and disappeared into thin air, reappearing in the tower. That's the 15th monarch of the Wuji divine dynasty, Di Wuji. At this moment Enai Hongyi, who was beside Ning Tian, said softly with a solemn look, "It's said that he's the strongest monarch of the Wuji divine dynasty." The strongest? Ning Tian muttered softly. He could feel an enormous strength from Di Wuji. At the very least, he had surpassed the 9 tribulations supreme monarch realm. He might have reached the half-step divine realm. I wonder who's stronger, my wife or this Diwuji? At the mention of Luo Wuching, a cold and peerless face appeared in his mind. After not seeing her for a long time, he missed her. Look! It's the Wangtian great ancestor of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. It seems that the pavilion master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion is not here. Their Wangtian great ancestor is here instead. At this moment, the crowd started to discuss again. Also, the Void God Emperor of the Void God Heavenly Palace. It's said that the Void God Heavenly Palace hasn't been peaceful recently. It seems that they've provoked someone they shouldn't have. There's such a thing? Let's hear it. What kind of existence is it that even the Void God Heavenly Palace can't provoke? This really makes us curious. I don't know. It's very mysterious. That's a pity. The Void God Emperor? Hearing the discussion, the corners of Ning Tian's lips curled up slightly as he silently looked over. On the balcony, the three superpowers took their seat. Suddenly, the Void God Emperor's body trembled as he felt a very familiar gaze fall on him. His expression changed drastically as the fear in his heart reached its peak. This gaze is so familiar, it can't be that kid, right? Impossible, absolutely impossible. This is the Chaos Grandmeet. How could someone from the Heavenly Spirit region appear here? The Void God Emperor looked around and heaved a sigh of relief when he found that there was nothing wrong. At this moment, the Wangtian great ancestor of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion stroked his beard and looked at the Void God Emperor with a smile. Void God Emperor, you look so scared. Could it be that you're really a Void God? Chapter 360. You're the one who's weak. The Empty God Emperor's expression changed when he heard Wangtian Old Ancestor's sarcasm. He snorted and glanced coldly at Wangtian Old Ancestor. How could the Emperor be weak? You're the ones who pry into the heavenly secret. Be careful of being punished by the heavens. Ha! Wangtian Old Ancestor laughed and stroked his beard. Since the Heaven Secret Pavilion can pry into the heavenly secrets, we're already prepared to die. His words were full of carefreeness. There's more. I heard that the Void God Heavenly Palace hasn't been peaceful recently. Wangtian Old Ancestor glanced at the Empty God Emperor and said meaningfully, I'm afraid that I won't be able to see you at the next Chaos Gathering. Humph! Ridiculous! How can the Void God Heavenly Palace not be peaceful? The Empty God Emperor snorted and gritted his teeth. Who can shake the Void God Heavenly Palace? Impossible. Also, the Emperor will be here at the next Chaos Gathering. He snorted inwardly. The Emperor doesn't believe that I won't go to the Heavenly Spirit Domain and just hole up in the firmament territory. The Emperor doesn't believe that trouble will fall from the sky. Ridiculous. Wangtian Old Ancestor stroked his beard and chuckled. Enough. At this moment, a dignified voice rang out, Don't quarrel. The Chaos Gathering is the most important thing now. Diwuji looked at the two and said indifferently. Although his voice was calm, it carried a hint of majesty. Yes, your majesty. Wangtian Old Ancestor and the Empty God Emperor calmed down and nodded slightly. Their eyes were grave. Obviously, they were afraid of the man in front of them. In that case, let the Chaos Gathering begin. Diwuji said faintly. He raised his hand and grabbed at a spot on the Chaos Sacred Altar. Suddenly, the void shattered, and an ancient bronze bell that was 100 meters in size appeared in the sky. Then, boom! The sound of the ancient bronze bell resounded through the world. Suddenly, the originally noisy primal chaos sacred altar fell silent in an instant. Millions of cultivators looked up at the sky in shock. It was an ancient bronze bell that was 100 meters long. In the sky, rumbling sounds could be heard. The aura of a martial monarch was unleashed. As the saying goes, the sound of the ancient bronze bell signifies the start of the primal chaos meeting. It was also at this time Di Wuji's dignified voice resounded from the top of the tower. Fellow Taoists of the Chaos Imperial region, 1,000 years have passed. The Chaos Gathering will begin again. Whoosh! Instantly, there was an uproar in the primal Chaos sacred altar. The atmosphere was heated to the extreme. It's finally begun, Ning Tian murmured and looked around with a slight frown. However, the Chaos meeting had already started, but the godchild of 10,000 swords and the other godchildren had yet to show up. On the side, Enai Hongi seemed to have guessed what he was thinking and said softly, "Ancestor, there might be a god's child among these millions of people. After all, not every god's child is arrogant. As a god's child, they usually want to cultivate. Of course, there might be someone as arrogant as the godchild of 10,000 swords. As for the godchild of 10,000 swords, he might just not be here yet." "I hope so," Ning Tian said casually and glanced at the top of the tower. If the godchild of 10,000 swords did not show up, in order to not let the little card expire, he could only let the godchild of 10,000 swords experience it first. Hiss! On the top of the tower, the godchild of 10,000 swords trembled subconsciously and looked around in fear. When he realized that nothing was wrong, he swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He murmured in his heart to comfort himself, "Don't be afraid. That kid is far away in the heavenly spirit domain. It's impossible for him to show up here." In the blink of an eye, several hours had passed. Ning Tian finally understood what the primal chaos grand meet was. He looked at the forces below who were bragging. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Was this not a bragging event? All of them were bragging about it without blushing. Ning Tian finally understood why Enai Hongi was so certain that the chances of Godchild Allswords showing up at the Chaos meeting were extremely high. After all, given his arrogant personality, there was no way he wouldn't show up when it came to showing off. As for why the ethereal sect would come, Enai Hongi could only spread her hands helplessly. Since the three major forces were here, the ethereal sect would not dare to not come. She was afraid. Among the millions of cultivators, many forces were the same. They did not want to come, but they had to. Ancestral Master, bear with it for a while. We're about to reach the next segment. It should be a scene that many cultivators would like to see the most. Enai Hongi looked at Ning Tian's helpless expression and smiled bitterly. Oh! Ning Tian's interest was piqued when he heard that. What segment? The gathering of 10,000 treasures. The corner of Enai Hongi's mouth lifted slightly and she spread her hands. To put it bluntly, it's a segment where those bragging forces take out the treasures that they're proud of to exchange or purely to attract attention. During the Gathering of Treasures segment, there will be 3 attainment stone steels erected for the cultivators to comprehend. Gathering of Treasures. Hearing that, Ning Tian's interest was piqued and his lips curled into a meaningful smile. Should I steal all these treasures in one go? Soon. The Gathering of Treasures segment began. In the Chaos Altar, millions of cultivators began to look forward to it and their eyes were filled with excitement. After all, not only could they enjoy the view, but they could also comprehend the 3 mysterious stone steels. Boom! In the middle of the Chaos Altar, 3 ancient stone steels were erected and instantly attracted the burning gazes of many cultivators. I heard that the 3 stone steels previously were Tao attainments. I wonder what they are this time. At the side, Yuqin looked at the stone steels below curiously and her eyes were filled with confusion. Haha! You'll find out later. Ning Tian's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Instantly, the few people beside him sensed that something was amiss and they had strange expressions. It seemed like, was the ancestral master trying to stir up trouble? Below, when the 3 stone steels were erected, many cultivators also took out their treasures. Look, my immortal artifact underwear. It won't rot no matter how I wear it. And this immortal sword of mine. It can cut through mud like iron. No, it can cut through iron like mud. Soon, the voices below continued, and various treasures gathered. Seeing that, Ning Tian's lips curled slightly and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Art was to make those treasures disappear quietly. Use cornucopia trial card. Use cornucopia trial card. Use successful. Chapter 361. Treasure Basin Trial Card, Successful Use. The host will turn into treasure and attract all things. Please get ready, the treasure gathering has begun. The system's voice sounded in his mind. Ning Tian focused his attention on the storage ring, waiting for the arrival of the treasure gathering of all things. If these guys knew that their treasures were all gone without them noticing, they would probably puke blood out of anger. Ning Tian smiled, waiting for a good show to unfold. However, at this moment, bang! Suddenly, a dazzling golden light burst out from his body and a huge suction force erupted from his body. Damn! System, what are you doing? Seeing this scene, Ning Tian was shocked. This treasure gathering seemed to be different from what he had imagined. It shouldn't be like this. Silently stealing all the treasures, causing them to lose everything and vomit blood again and again? But why did this happen? The system was speechless. At this moment, the system said casually and remained silent. We are treasure gatherers. We want to snatch all the treasures and anger everyone to death. Ning Tian's head was full of question marks. Although the commotion caused by Ning Tian had not alarmed the millions of cultivators, at least Moon Spirit and the other girls saw it. Wow! Senior sister, Ancestral Master has turned into light. Yuqin looked at Ning Tian, who was bathed in golden light, as if she had discovered a new continent. She was extremely excited. What kind of move is this? Ancestral Master, I want to learn it too. I want to turn into light too. Seeing this, and I Hongyi, Moon Spirit, and the other girls frowned slightly and a trace of seriousness flashed in their eyes. It seemed that, every time the Ancestral Master turned into golden light, it would cause a huge commotion. Moreover, it was the Chaos Grand Meet where millions of cultivators were gathered. If this caused a commotion, what would happen? Bang! At this moment, the girls' minds went blank and they lost their ability to think. Cough, cough. Well, this old man is not feeling well. Why don't this old man leave first? At the side, Elder Tianfeng coughed dryly. He had a bad premonition and was already prepared to slip away. Roar! However, just as he said this, the flame-sealing Lion King in Yuqin's arms roared. The little old man wanted to run? Master Lion would not allow it. Ahahaha! Elder Tianfeng smiled awkwardly as he scratched his head. In his heart, he was already prepared to welcome a storm. Boom! Right at this moment. Robbery experience card. That was not right. The cornucopia experience card was fully activated. Haha! Below. A burly man held a pair of red underwear in his hand and laughed heartily. The Taoist priest beside him, who looked like an immortal, revealed a wretched smile. Fellow Taoist, since you've bought this Taoist's immortal underwear, I guarantee that you'll be much, much richer. After all, this is my personal experience. Haha. Thank you, Taoist priest. Wait, why did you experience it personally? As the burly man laughed, he seemed to have thought of something and frowned. The Taoist priest scratched his head. At this moment, there was a loud bang and a dazzling golden light. Damn! My underwear! No, my immortal underwear! There was an exclamation. The red immortal underwear in the burly man's hand actually flew out of his hand and shot toward the flashing golden light. Damn! Someone is stealing underwear! Bah, no, this is not stealing. This is a goddamn robbery. Damn, you're even robbing underwear. Are you crazy? The burly man wanted to cry but had no tears. He wanted to chase after it but realized that no matter what he did, he could not stop the underwear from running freely. Amazing! The wretched Taoist priest widened his eyes and stroked his long beard. This is the first time I've seen someone who dares to rob at the chaos meet. Damn, they're even robbing the underwear I've worn before. Damn, they're amazing. Huh! At the side. Hearing that, the burly man immediately looked over. Soon, there was a scream. Damn Taoist priest, you bought second-hand underwear. You're so wicked. Ah! Spare me, hero. At the same time, when a golden light flashed, everyone's treasures in the primal chaos banquet were eerily shot in one direction. It immediately caused a huge commotion and endless screams could be heard. My great supplement immortal pill. My 1,000 years of assassination guide. Damn, I just bought a cat demon maid. I haven't even used it yet and you've already snatched it away. Are you crazy? For a moment, there were endless curses. The million cultivators were furious. Who was it that was so bold as to rob at the Chaos Grand Gathering? The number of treasures that were snatched was innumerable. There were immortal pills, martial arts techniques, weapons, and a cat demon maid. Most importantly, once the treasures flew, they were out of control. No matter how hard they tried to stop them, they could not do anything. This was simply lawless, not caring about martial ethics, and blatantly robbing. Hiss! This, ancestral master, what are you doing? And Hongi and the others looked at the various treasures flying over with a dumbfounded expression. Then, they looked at Ning Tian, who was surrounded by treasures and holding a cat demon maid in his arms, and fell into a long silence. What was going on? Roar! The Lion King shook off the red underwear on its head, and looked at Ning Tian excitedly. Could it be? Master knew that I wanted the cat demon maid? However, before it could get excited, Ning Tian threw the cat demon maid in his arms. She had no figure and no looks. How could she be treasured by others? System, in the future, can we not name things so high and mighty? Just say that you want to rob the experience card. Don't call it a treasure basin experience card. Ning Tian looked at the mountain of treasures and his face darkened. The system said, no. At this moment, on the tall building, Di Wuji, the Wangtian old ancestor, and the empty god emperor were all stunned for a long time. Seeing this scene, even the three of them could not sit still. Who was the weirdo? How dare he rob 1,000,000 people under their noses? Ah! The Wangtian old ancestor measured with the Tianji ruler in his hand, and could not help but laugh. Ha, interesting, interesting. In his heart, he muttered softly, as expected of the person mentioned by the pavilion master. With this ability, even if you look through the ages, you won't be able to find a person like him. Ha! Interesting. Someone actually dares to do this. He's courting death. The empty god emperor sneered and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. He said coldly, I want to see who dares to do this. He's really courting death. Humph. Di Wuji also frowned slightly as he looked at the golden light. At this moment, the gazes of 1,000,000 cultivators were all here. Chapter 362. That burst of golden light blinded the eyes of millions of people. Within the golden light, one could vaguely see a figure flashing. It was most likely that kid who had snatched it. The one beside that kid seems to be the sect master of the ethereal sect, and Hongi, and the elders of their sect. Could it be that the one who robbed 1,000,000 cultivators is from the ethereal sect? Hiss. Even if there are two great emperors, they wouldn't have such guts. I didn't expect this, I really didn't expect this. Haha. How dare he rob 1,000,000 people at the Chaos Gathering? Even if there are two great emperors, he will still die. In an instant, when they learned of the origin of the figure in the golden light, the 1,000,000 cultivators sneered. How dare he rob 1,000,000 cultivators? Wasn't that courting death? It's over, it's over. Feeling the cold gazes of the 1,000,000 cultivators and hearing the mocking words of the surrounding cultivators, Elder Tianfeng's face immediately wore a painful mask as he muttered to himself absent-mindedly, Roar! Seeing this scene, the Lion King roared. Then, it jumped out of Yu Qin's arms and transformed into the height of a person. It patted Elder Tianfeng's shoulder as if to comfort him. Brother Lion. At this moment, Elder Tianfeng suddenly felt that this lion, other than being annoying, was actually quite good. Roar roar. The Lion King shook its head slightly, then wrote a sentence and handed it to Elder Tianfeng. Brother Lion, you don't have to comfort me, I'm actually… Elder Tianfeng sighed. As he spoke, he looked over, and his expression changed from being touched to gritting his teeth. He saw. The lion-shaped words were written like this. Cold night, I miss you like a river. F***ck. I must be blind to praise you. Roar roar. At the side, Anai Hongi's expression was a little solemn, but she did not lose her sense of propriety like Elder Tianfeng. Her gaze fell on Ning Tian. She believed that there must be a reason why the ancestor did this. Wasn't it just robbing 1,000,000 cultivators? This was very ancestor. Under the million gazes, the golden light slowly dissipated. One could vaguely see. Within the golden light was a young man. His appearance was still hidden in the golden light. Why does he look so familiar? The empty god realm martial emperor, who had been aggressive and murderous, suddenly frowned and his aura dissipated. That's strange. Why does this brat look so much like that great god? He furrowed his brows and remained silent. Just a moment ago, he had wanted to see who was so arrogant, but now, he was terrified. Rumble! At this moment, the 3 mysterious boulders on the primal chaos sacred altar buzzed and turned into 3 fortunate encounters that charged at the young man. F***ck. Amazing! This brat is even robbing me of my accomplishments. F***ck. I beg you, please be a human. Seeing this scene, the 1,000,000 cultivators widened their eyes. It was one thing for them to snatch their treasures, but what the F***ck? Not even leaving the 3 venerables' attainments for them was too much. Just as the 1,000,000 cultivators were riled up and furious, they heard the young man's muttering. Treasure? Why do I feel like there are so many pieces of trash? What's the use of this martial art? Oh? The 3 venerables' attainments? Let me see him. The mastery of sword art, fist art, and palm art is useless too. Their understanding is not as profound as mine. Sigh, how disappointing. Are these 1,000,000 cultivators all trash? He raised his head all of a sudden. Why are you all looking at me like that? What I mean is, everyone here is trash. No, everyone's treasures are trash. I didn't say you're all trash. I hope you understand. Hearing the words, the wind stopped blowing. The crowd fell silent. Everyone around them was dumbfounded. Damn it, this is amazing! A single person challenging 1,000,000 cultivators? Who was he? Was he that impressive? F***k. I really want to beat him to death. Is there a team? Let's do it together. F***k. Elder Tianfeng stared at Ning Tian with his eyes open wide. His admiration toward his ancestor was like a surging river. His ancestor had done what he wanted to do the most when he was young. His ancestor was awesome. Forever a god. The reactions of the 3 forces on the tower were different. Ancestor Wangtian laughed and stroked his beard. Golden light flashed in his old eyes. He sighed inwardly. No wonder he is the most valued person by the pavilion master in the past tens of thousands of years. So arrogant, so ridiculous. This is so interesting. On the other side, the empty god emperor was really scared. He looked like he had lost his soul. His body was trembling uncontrollably and his face was pale. How could it be him? Why is he really here? Impossible. The Tianling domain is so far away from the firmament territory. How could he come here so quickly? Is he a ghost? But this voice, it can't be wrong. What should I do now? It's not too late to run away. But if I run away in front of 1,000,000 people, Won't I become a laughing stock? Forget it, I'd better play dead. The empty god emperor muttered to himself. At this time, he might as well play dead. He closed his eyes and could not see anything. Diwuji frowned. The space between his brows was filled with dignity as he looked at the youth who had caused the commotion. In the end, he spoke. Who are you? This is the Primal Chaos Grand Meeting. How can a small fry like you cause trouble? His voice was full of Emperor's aura. It was like the sound of a bell, resounding in all directions. In an instant, the surrounding million cultivators quieted down and looked at the tower. They sneered and waited for a good show. No matter how powerful you are. Let's see if you can still be arrogant when the emperor of the Wuji dynasty attacked. A faint pressure fell on Ningtian. However, it was as if he was ignoring the person, ignoring the imposing aura. Diwuji frowned slightly. Finally, under everyone's gaze, Ningtian looked at the tower. He first looked at Diwuji, then his eyes moved slightly and a smile appeared on his face. It was an especially warm smile. Oh, isn't this Brother Void God? Look, I've already done the 1,000,000 cultivators you asked me to rob. Remember to give me a 5-star rating later. Also, I can't miss a single ticket. As soon as his voice fell, the surroundings were silent. There was a long silence. Then, like a boiling pot, there was an uproar. What? So all of this was the instructions of the Void God Heavenly Palace. I didn't expect the Void God Emperor to be so arrogant. Unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. The Void God Heavenly Palace is too despicable. I suggest you get rid of them. Damn it. They simply don't put us in their eyes. At this moment, all the cultivators were furious. Flames of anger flashed in their eyes. On the tower, the Void God Emperor was dumbfounded. Confused, at a loss. I've already played dead. How can this blame be put on me? He opened his mouth slightly, wanting to say something. But before he could speak, he saw Ningtian with a kind smile on his face and said, Brother Void God, have you forgotten? It seems that I'll have to go to your house. In an instant, the Void God Emperor's body trembled and his face turned pale. Chapter 363. At this moment, the fear in the Void God Emperor's heart surfaced. He thought of how Ningtian had displayed his invincible might in the heavenly spirit region. One person, against 13 emperors. But it was enough to instantly kill them. Such a peerless expert was invincible. Gulp. The Void God Emperor swallowed his saliva as fear surfaced in his eyes. He did not dare to speak carelessly. What if this great god really went to the Void God Heavenly Palace? How would the problem be solved then? Of course, it would be solved by nuclear weapons. At that time, the Void God Heavenly Palace would announce that they had been exterminated. Thinking of this, his body trembled as his face paled. At this moment, the Void God Emperor was still a Void God. He had already been traumatized by Ningtian. Shortly after, a pale smile appeared on his face. Under everyone's gaze, he slowly said, Ancestor is right. Robbing 1,000,000 cultivators was indeed done by my Void God Heavenly Palace. Before the Void God Emperor could finish his words, not far away, Ningtian said seriously, That's right. This faux god of mine is young and hot-blooded. He keeps spouting nonsense. He even said that everyone here is trash. Oh, also, what did he say? The limitless divine dynasty and the heavenly secret pavilion are just stepping stones for him. Sigh, no matter what I say, he won't listen. The moment these words came out, an uproar instantly broke out. The 1,000,000 cultivators widened their eyes as they looked at the pale-faced Void God Emperor on the tall building. All kinds of thoughts flashed through their mind. So, the Void God Heavenly Palace has such ambitions. I really didn't expect this. You can know a person's face but not his heart. I thought that the Void God Emperor was already very arrogant. I didn't expect him to be so arrogant that he doesn't even put the heavenly secret pavilion and the limitless divine dynasty in his eyes. Haha, he really doesn't know life from death. From today onwards, the Void God Heavenly Palace has offended all the major forces. I can only say that they're seeking their own destruction. Arrogance isn't something to play with. The million cultivators sneered. In the face of the Void God Emperor's arrogance, they could only use one word to describe it. The Void God Heavenly Palace was strong. But how could he be stronger than so many forces? Not to mention, this sentence directly offended two super forces. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled into a smile when she heard the words around her. She did not say anything, but this made Enai Hongi and the others feel extremely puzzled. Could it be the Patriarch was from the Void God Heavenly Palace? But those words just now were clearly to kill with a borrowed knife. They wanted to push the Void God Heavenly Palace into a corner of death. They wanted to destroy the heart of the Void God Heavenly Palace. However, looking at the Void God Emperor's reaction, it was as if he had silently agreed. It was as though he didn't dare to refute the Patriarch's words. His Patriarch, this man, suddenly became even more mysterious in the eyes of these women. On a tall building, when the empty God Emperor heard Ning Tian's words, he was dumbfounded. At that moment, two pairs of cold eyes fell on him, making him tremble. A pale smile appeared on his face. Cough. About that, God Monarch, old ancestor Wang Tian, let me explain. That day, I was just talking nonsense when I was drunk. He understood in his heart. Even if the Void God Heavenly Palace was at its peak, it wouldn't be a match for these two super forces. Not to mention the current Void God Heavenly Palace. Is that so? Di Wuji's cold eyes fell on the empty God Emperor. Of course, the empty God Emperor's body trembled. He wanted to say something, but at that moment, a light voice sounded not far away. Of course it's true. After all, drunk people speak the truth. Only when one is drunk will one spit out the words in one's heart. When these words came out, the surroundings fell silent again. It seemed like that was the reason? The tall building also fell silent. Void God Heavenly Palace, very good. Di Wuji only glanced at the empty God Emperor indifferently. As the God Monarch of the limitless divine dynasty, he naturally wouldn't be affected by Ning Tian's words and lose his judgment. However, these 1,000,000 cultivators weren't like him. At the very least, the Void God Heavenly Palace had already offended 1,000,000 cultivators and the sects behind them. As for the old ancestor Wang Tian, he had a smile on his face from the beginning to the end. He looked at Ning Tian with a smile and sighed inwardly, as expected of the person chosen by the pavilion master. What a good way to kill with a borrowed knife. Creak. On the side, the empty God Emperor gritted his teeth. It's all over now. He could only try his best to please the limitless divine dynasty. Brother Empty God, there's no need to thank me. At this moment, Ning Tian's voice sounded with a trace of a smile. In an instant, the empty God Emperor's blood boiled and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He subconsciously gritted his teeth and said angrily, I thank your mother. However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw Ning Tian raise her hand. Instantly, his tongue curled, and the words that came out of his mouth suddenly changed. Thank you, my God. Thank you so much, Patriarch. Seeing this scene, Enai Hongi and the others could not help but be shocked. Judging from the situation, the empty God Emperor was very afraid of the ancestor. No, not afraid, but fear from the bottom of his heart, even a kind of terror. What did the ancestor do to the empty God Emperor? The empty God Emperor is a 9 tribulations great emperor. Enai Hongi's pair of beautiful eyes fell on Ning Tian. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Perhaps Moon Spirit was the only one present who knew. That day, even Di Wuji had to give in to the ancestor's divine power. Just as the million cultivators were gnashing their teeth at the empty god emperor, the sound of a sword rang in the sky. Then, sword chi spread for thousands of miles. A giant sword broke through the clouds. Then, there was a loud laugh. Ha! How can I, the divine son of 10,000 swords, be absent from such a grand event? As the saying goes, the main character is always the last to appear, and I, the divine son of 10,000 swords, am the main character of this chaos grand event. They saw on the giant sword. The young man laughed unrestrainedly. It's the divine son of 10,000 swords. Divine son, someone is finally here. It's the most arrogant divine son of 10,000 swords. Is there going to be a good show in this chaos grand event? Hearing those words and seeing that person, the million cultivators all looked over. He's finally here. Ning Tian lifted the corner of his mouth slightly and looked up. Just as he was thinking about how to kill the divine son of 10,000 swords, the divine son of 10,000 swords took the initiative to rush over. This kid has so many treasures? Since I've seen them, these things are destined to be with me. The divine son of 10,000 swords' eyes suddenly lit up. Then, he stepped on the sword and rushed toward Ning Tian. Seeing this, the million cultivators instantly widened their eyes. Here it comes. The two people who loved to rob the most had finally collided. Chapter 364. Everyone in the Chaos Imperial Domain knew how arrogant and overbearing the god-child of 10,000 swords was. If he was interested in any treasure, he would basically say one word: rob. Moreover, the person who was robbed would not dare to have any objections. After all, the god-child of 10,000 swords was the god-child, and he had the hidden sect behind him, the 10,000 swords immortal sect. With such a background, who would dare to have any objections? At this moment, the god-child of 10,000 swords was going to rob a kid who had just robbed a million cultivators in front of a million cultivators. How could they not be excited? The two people who were the best at robbing. What kind of sparks would be created when they collided? Everyone's gazes turned to look at him. Ha ha ha! So many treasures, they're all mine now. The god-child of 10,000 swords' eyes were filled with greed. The giant sword under his feet exploded with power, and he moved even faster. Seeing that Ning Tian was still standing there, he shouted without hesitation, "Kid, get out of my way!" As soon as he said that, on the tall building, the empty god emperor revealed a happy smile. He had been sulking for so long. Finally, it was the emperor's turn to watch someone else's show. You're alive and well, why did you provoke him? Under everyone's gaze, everyone looked at Ning Tian, wanting to know what choice he would make. The god-child of 10,000 swords stepped on the giant sword and descended from the sky, getting closer and closer to Ning Tian. 500 meters. 300 meters. 100 meters. At this moment, Ning Tian, who had been standing in place, finally moved. He did not waste any time talking nonsense. He circulated his palm and used the heaven-tier martial art, the supreme chaos palm. He slapped out, and his spiritual energy turned into a giant palm. He slapped the 10,000 swords godchild who was charging at him to the ground. Boom! Boom! The giant sword was instantly torn into pieces. The godchild of 10,000 swords was heavily slammed into the ground, creating a human-shaped crater and sending up a cloud of dust. Seeing this scene, the empty god emperor was pleased. So this is how I was beaten up by the ancestral master. Now, I can finally see the ancestral master beating someone up. Ha! Awesome! However, before he could rejoice in his heart, he heard the sounds of discussion around him. TSK. The Void God Heavenly Palace is too arrogant. They even dared to hit God's son of 10,000 swords. Are they not afraid of the hidden sect behind him? The most arrogant force in the firmament territory really lives up to its name. Admirable, admirable. At this moment, the empty God Emperor was stunned. When did my Void God Heavenly Palace beat up 10,000 swords? Although he wanted to watch a good show, the Void God Heavenly Palace couldn't afford to provoke the myriad sword immortal sect behind the Godchild. Just when he was a little confused, however, he heard the ancestral master say such a sentence. Godchild 10,000 swords, you've been arrogant for so long. Let my Void God Heavenly Palace teach you a lesson. F***CK? Void God Emperor was dumbfounded. He finally reacted. Mother****, this shameless ancestor represented the Void God Heavenly Palace in everyone's eyes. The Void Gods had to pay for the Patriarch's actions? What the F***CK? The Void God Emperor, who wanted to watch a good show, burst into tears instantly. If the ancestral master used their name to increase the fame of the Void God Heavenly Palace, he would be more than happy to do so. However, if the ancestral master used their name to provoke enemies everywhere, then, it's over, it's over. The Void God Emperor was dispirited as he mumbled to himself. Beside him, the Wangtian ancestor looked over with a smile. Void God Emperor, I have a treasure of kidney here. Do you want a bottle? The Void God Emperor was speechless. A glint flashed in Di Wuji's eyes when he saw the scene below, but he did not stop them. Perhaps he had his own thoughts. These children of God should be taught a lesson that they were only the children of God. In the big pit on the ground, a furious roar was heard. So it's the Void God Heavenly Palace. How dare you provoke me? It seems like you don't care about the myriad sword immortal sect. It seems like the world has forgotten about us, the hidden sects. Hearing this, the Void God Emperor's face turned even paler. Godchild 10,000 swords words were laced with anger as a figure shot up into the sky. However, before he could reach the sky, he was kicked to the ground by Ning Tian. Boom. Then, a foot stomped on his chest. No matter how hard Godchild 10,000 swords struggled, it was to no avail. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on him. What are you yelling for? Do you believe that the Void God Heavenly Palace will kill you right now if you keep yelling? Ning Tian said coldly as he kicked Godchild 10,000 swords. Pfft! On the tall building, the Void God Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood. Void God, what's wrong with you? Come, have a bite of the treasure of kidney. The Wangtian ancestor said with a smile. Damn it! Void God Heavenly Palace, right? Just you wait. I won't let the Void God Heavenly Palace go. Godchild 10,000 swords' eyes were filled with murderous intent as the spiritual energy in his body was suppressed. Godchild 10,000 swords had the strength of a one-star God Emperor. However, most of his strength was due to the divine blood in his body. He had not consolidated his cultivation at all. Although Ning Tian was only a one-star God Emperor, his strength was solid. Suppressing Godchild 10,000 swords was as easy as lifting a finger. Oh. Do you think you can leave here alive? Ning Tian's lips curled into a cold smile as his tone turned cold. It was as if the surrounding air had frozen at this moment. Godchild 10,000 swords' body trembled as his eyes were filled with fear. He could clearly feel the murderous intent that was almost tangible. You? What are you trying to do? Godchild 10,000 swords asked with a trembling voice. What am I trying to do? Ning Tian sneered and said a sentence that Godchild 10,000 swords was very familiar with. Robbery. Godchild 10,000 swords was dumbfounded. This guy stole his line? What do you want? The thing you took from the ethereal sect? Ning Tian said indifferently. Ethereal sect? You mean the blood essence of the divine Saint Pond? Godchild 10,000 swords was stunned. Then, he rolled his eyes and said, It's not with me. It's in the sect. Come back to the sect with me and I'll give it to you. The million cultivators around could not help but sneer when they heard that. Do you think this guy from the Void God Heavenly Palace is a fool? Wouldn't going back with you be like a lamb in a tiger's den? However, Ning Tian nodded seriously. Okay, take me there. Okay. Godchild 10,000 Swords held back the laughter in his heart and said okay 3 times in a row. Haha. Kid, when you go back to the sect, I'll make you beg for death. The million cultivators around were also confused. It was such a simple trick. Could this guy not see through it? Why did he have to be like a lamb in a tiger's den? However, what the million cultivators did not know was, it was not like a lamb in a tiger's den. It was luring the wolf into the house. Chapter 365. Then, follow me. Godchild of 10,000 Swords snorted as he tried to get up from the ground. However, the foot that was stepping on his body showed no signs of moving. If you don't move, how am I supposed to bring you there? He frowned as he was very unhappy. Shut up! Ning Tian kicked him again, sealing all the spiritual qi in Godchild of 10,000 Swords' body. After that, he lifted Godchild of 10,000 Swords up like a little chick. Do you have the right to speak? One more word and I'll break one of your arms. Ning Tian's indifferent voice rang in Godchild of 10,000 Swords' ears. Godchild of 10,000 Swords trembled in fear. Despite the humiliation, Godchild of 10,000 Swords did not dare to say anything. Show me the way, Ning Tian said casually, then lifted Godchild of 10,000 Swords and flew into the sky. Seeing this, the millions of cultivators were stunned for a moment. Then, a glint flashed in their eyes. Those who could keep up tried their best to do so. They were going to watch a good show. Let's go. Watch the show. Hee, is the Void God Heaven Palace going to fight with the Wanjian Immortal Sect? Hee, I love watching shows. At this moment, the millions of cultivators in the Chaos Sacred Altar began to move. Some stepped on swords, some rode on pigs. In short, they used all kinds of methods to catch up to the 2 figures in the sky. On the tower, the 3 supreme forces did not hesitate and followed as well. Perhaps Di Wuji and Wang Tian Old Ancestor only wanted to see the mysterious young man's methods. However, the Void God Emperor did not think so. His mind was filled with the thought of what the Ancestral Master was going to do with the name of the Void God Heaven Palace. Sect Master, Senior Sister, should we follow them too? Yu Qin's eyes widened in excitement. This little girl couldn't wait to see a good show. And I Hongyi nodded slightly with a serious expression. After all, this was the Wanjian Immortal Sect, an absolute hidden sect. Let's go. She frowned slightly and led the crowd to follow him. At that instant, the cultivators on the Chaos Sacred Altar made their move. There were so many of them that it was absolutely shocking. At the 10,000 Swords Immortal Mountain, 10 million meters away from the Primal Chaos Altar. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the sky, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Millions of cultivators had arrived at the 10,000 Swords Immortal Mountain. Everyone's gaze fell on the 2 figures not far ahead. Is this the 10,000 Sword Immortal Sect? Ning Tian looked ahead and saw that it was empty. There was only a huge mountain. However, there was no need to think about it. There was definitely a formation here, which was why it was able to hide here. Yes, this is the Wanjian Immortal Sect. It's not something your Void God Heavenly Palace can compare to. Godchild of 10,000 Swords' face was full of pride. Ning Tian said, "Oh, what does the Tianma cult's patriarch have anything to do with the Void God Heavenly Palace?" Boom! Right at this moment, the 10,000 Swords Immortal Mountain continued to rumble. Then, spiritual qi surged, and a terrifying aura emerged from the mountains. A huge formation slowly appeared, and under the dazzling golden light, one could vaguely see buildings appearing in the mountains. It's the hidden sect, the 10,000 Sword Immortal Sect. It's really here. The hidden formation has been torn apart. It seems like they're going to take the initiative to come out. Hee hee, this is going to be a good show. This is a hidden sect. A confrontation between the hidden sect and the void god Heavenly Palace. I'm really looking forward to it. At this moment, discussions continued to ring out. Some of the millions of cultivators stepped into the sky, while others surrounded the mountains. Their gazes met, and they were all filled with anticipation and excitement. Hee hee, I'm afraid the void god Heavenly Palace is going to war with the 10,000 sword immortal sect. TSK, 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 I'm really looking forward to it. In the sky, 3 figures silently watched this scene. The Wangtian Patriarch smiled and looked at the Void God Emperor beside him. Humph! The Void God Emperor snorted, and his expression was extremely ugly. At the side, Di Wuji crossed his arms and looked down coldly. Boom! At this moment, in the mountains, all the buildings appeared. All kinds of powerful auras seemed to be awakening at this moment. Boom! Boom! At that instant, an imperious voice could be heard. Who dares to touch the 10,000 sword god? Aren't you afraid of the sword god's wrath? The voice fell. Among the thousands of buildings, 5 auras emerged. 5 white-haired old men stepped out from the void and looked coldly at the millions of cultivators. 5 great emperor-level experts. Are these 5 Nine Tribulations great emperors? The sect left behind by the sword god is indeed terrifying. Hiss! I really don't know where the void god Heavenly Palace got the courage to openly challenge the 10,000 sword immortal sect. Seeing the 5 white-haired old men and feeling the monstrous aura, the millions of cultivators' expressions changed slightly, and they were shocked. This was the force left behind by the god. It was indeed powerful. Who are you? How dare you do this to the 10,000 sword god? Quickly let go. The 5 white-haired old men glared at Ning Tian and shouted sternly. Ning Tian picked his ear and looked indifferent. Me? Oh, I'm from the Void God Heavenly Palace. If you don't like it, then come and destroy my Void God Heavenly Palace. Void God Heavenly Palace? Haha, good. Good. How dare the Void God Heavenly Palace look down on my 10,000 sword immortal sect? The 5 white-haired old men sneered coldly. In the sky, the Void God Emperor's mouth twitched. So, can you give me the thing I want? I'm not the kind of person who likes to fight and kill. I like world peace. Ning Tian smiled kindly and looked at the 5 white-haired old men. Thing? What thing? The 5 white-haired old men frowned. 5 old ancestors, cut the crap. Let's kill him first. Don't even think about taking what belongs to me. With the 5 great ancestors present, the 10,000 sword god was still extremely arrogant, even though he was caught by Ning Tian. What was there to be afraid of? Anyway, he had the great ancestors and the 10,000 sword immortal sect to back him up. What was there to be afraid of? Since the Divine Sun said so, we can't spare you. The 5 great ancestors laughed wildly. I haven't fought for a long time. I really don't know if these old bones are still useful. Sigh. Ning Tian let out a long sigh. I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. Really? What's so good about fighting and killing? The ancestral master likes peace, but I can't do anything if you don't let me. Hearing Ning Tian's mutterings, the 5 patriarchs frowned and scolded. Brat, what are you muttering about? Die for this old man. Sigh. I wonder if you've heard of a palm technique that descends from the sky. Ning Tian had a brilliant smile on her face. The 5 great ancestors were stunned. At this moment, 1 palm extermination card. Use. Book Group. 89799696 Chapter 366. Sect Annihilation Card, Successful Use. At the same time, the system's voice rang in his mind. As his voice sounded, the entire area seemed to have dimmed. A frightening might had actually begun to gather at this moment. Boom, 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 boom. Tens of millions of meters high in the sky, the thunderous sounds continued to resound. At the same time, dark clouds covered the sun. Everything seemed to indicate that something big was about to happen. What's going on? Heaven and earth are changing colors and the sky is darkening. What's going to happen? Why would something like this happen? Could it be the divine punishment of the heavenly gods? Hiss! The millions of cultivators outside of the 10,000 Swords Immortal Mountain widened their eyes in horror when they sensed this sudden and terrifying change. At this moment, it was as if the temperature in the sky had plummeted. Everything. There was no warning, but it was extremely horrifying. Boom! At the same time, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, and waves of divine power flowed out. It was like the divine punishment of heaven and earth. In the Wanswords mountain range, the trees began to wither, the ground dried up, and the streams stopped flowing. The spiritual energy began to be forcefully sucked away, and it flowed continuously into the sky. Seeing this, the millions of cultivators who had been in a state of fear and confusion were even more terrified. What was this? What was going on? In the sky, Diwuji and the other two frowned slightly, and a trace of seriousness appeared in their eyes. Heaven and earth are changing colors, hundreds of trees are withering, rivers are breaking, and spiritual energy is being forcefully sucked away. Is something big happening? Wang Tian ancestor frowned and looked at the sky, and a trace of curiosity appeared in his heart. Allow this old man to do some calculations? Old ancestor Wang Tian said. He directly took out the divine ruler from his chest and was about to calculate the heavenly secrets. Seeing this, Di Wuji and the empty god emperor looked over, waiting for the Wang Tian ancestor's calculation. After all, the divine secret technique of the divine secret pavilion was very powerful, and other than the pavilion master, the divine secret technique of the divine secret pavilion was very powerful. Besides the pavilion master, the Wang Tian ancestor was the best at calculating. The Wang Tian ancestor kept measuring with the divine ruler, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Within a few breaths, suddenly, with a cracking sound, the heavenly fate ruler actually broke into pieces. The old ancestor of Wang Tian furrowed his brows and opened his tightly shut eyes. Then, a sickly red color appeared on his face as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked in the direction of Ning Tian, his body trembling uncontrollably. This kid, Wuxing? No heavenly mandate. Di Wuji and the Void God Emperor's expressions changed drastically when they heard this. Even the usually calm Di Wuji could no longer sit still. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. Tianming. He wasn't a man of destiny. Instead, the fate of the heavens. If the heavenly Tao wants you dead, you have no choice but to die. Almost everyone in the profound sky continent had their destinies controlled by the heavenly Tao. No one could escape, and there were no exceptions. Therefore, everyone yearned to become a god, yearned to become stronger, all for the sake of escaping the mandate of heaven. But Ning Tian had no destiny? Then wouldn't his fate not be controlled by the heavenly Tao? This kid. He was so terrifying. At this moment, even Di Wuji, who was the emperor of the limitless divine dynasty, looked at Ning Tian with deep shock and even a trace of envy. No destiny. That was, my fate was in my own hand. Old man Wang Tian, this commotion was caused by the ancestral master? The Void God Emperor's body trembled as he asked. The Wang Tian ancestor's face was slightly pale as he nodded. Old man Wang Tian, why don't you do another divination? The Void God Emperor asked tentatively. What the F***ck? The Wang Tian ancestor was instantly enraged and coughed out blood. If I do another divination, I'll be able to meet the ancestors of the heavenly secret pavilion. Boom. At this moment, in the sky, a golden light could be vaguely seen. In an instant, the three of them looked over, and so did the millions of cultivators around them. Kid, what did you do? The 5 patriarchs trembled when they saw that, and they glared at Ning Tian furiously. I didn't do anything. Ning Tian spread out his hands and chuckled. I just wanted to show you what it means to fall from the sky. Art is an explosion. As soon as he finished speaking, under the shocked gazes of the 5 ancestors and millions of cultivators, Ning Tian slowly raised his hand and slammed it down. At the same time, in the sky, the giant golden palm formed by countless spiritual energy appeared and fell heavily on the Wanjian immortal sect along with Ning Tian's movement. A terrifying aura that was enough to make all the surrounding experts pale was released. Boom! Quick! Activate the 10,000 Swords Mountain Protection Formation. Seeing this, the 5 ancestors' faces turned pale in an instant. Their eyes were filled with deep shock as they roared. In just a few seconds, in the Wanjian immortal sect, a huge formation was erected. With the support of 10,000 swords, it was about to defend against the palm that would destroy the sect. Boom! Boom! In just the blink of an eye, in the sky, the golden palm fell heavily with a loud bang. A wave of berserk spirit chi was stirred up, and it collided heavily with the myriad sword mountain protecting grand formation. Boom! In an instant, a huge force swept across the surroundings. Although the millions of cultivators had run far away, they were still mercilessly sent flying and crashed heavily on the ground. A huge white light shrouded the entire Wanjian immortal sect. Boom! When the giant palm landed, the rumbling stopped, and what replaced it was a deathly silence. Cough cough, what happened? That palm is so terrifying. Can the 10,000 sword immortal sect withstand this palm strike? At this moment, the millions of cultivators who were sent flying spat out blood and got up from the ground. They did not even have time to wipe the blood from the corners of their mouths as they looked in the direction of the Wanjian immortal sect. They wanted to find out what was going on. So powerful, and Ai Hongyi waved her sleeves and the spiritual energy shield that enveloped them slowly disappeared. The girls looked at Ning Tian in the sky with shock. This was their ancestral master, an eternal god. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the Wanjian immortal sect. However, that place had already turned into daytime. They could vaguely see the remnant spiritual energy that turned into a beautiful mushroom cloud that rose slowly. The Wanjian immortal child, who was carried by Ning Tian like a little chick, had a deep fear in his eyes. He looked in the direction of the sect and his body kept trembling. A few minutes later, when the daytime disappeared, the crowd finally saw the power of that palm. Hiss! This glance was like a fleeting glimpse, and the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard incessantly. Under the palm. Where was the Wanjian immortal sect? Where was the Wanjian immortal sect? The entire Wanjian immortal sect was razed to the ground. The blood and wreckage that everyone expected did not appear. Chapter 367. Instead, it was a void. Under this palm, no living beings existed, directly creating the power of nothingness. Hiss! That palm is amazing. This ancestral master is ridiculously strong? At that moment, the millions of cultivators were shocked. They looked at the young man in the sky who had a smile on his face and felt a chill down their spines, causing their bodies to tremble. While they were talking and laughing, one palm and a sect was destroyed. It was ridiculous. Ancestral master is so powerful. And Ai Hongyi and the other girls looked at Ning Tian with sparkling eyes. Their eyes were filled with excitement. As expected of the ancestral master, he always brought them unexpected surprises. The destruction of the sect was not only a surprise, but also a shock. Absolute shock. In the sky, Di Wuji, old ancestor Wangtian, and the empty god realm emperor fell into silence. The former two's eyes shone brightly. Their hearts were still filled with shock, and their hearts were in turmoil. Unlike the other two, the empty god emperor was not only shocked, but he was also scared to the point that he almost wet his pants. Damn it! With that palm, the Wanjian immortal sect with 5 tribulations great emperors was gone. How did he do it? What should he do so that the ancestral master would not attack the void god heavenly palace? Who would be able to contend against this palm? There was a deathly silence. At that moment, the millions of cultivators did not even dare to breathe. They suddenly realized that the young man who was called the ancestral master was much more powerful than they had imagined. What did you do? At that moment, godchild of Wanjian fell into a silent fear. He looked at Ning Tian and asked in a trembling voice. Nothing. I just killed a few people. Ning Tian's lips curled into a smile. That cold smile made godchild of Wanjian feel like he had fallen into a bottomless ice abyss. Aren't you afraid that you'll destroy the thing you want with one palm? Godchild of Wanjian swallowed his saliva and forced himself to calm down. If the thing he wanted was still there, then he had the right to negotiate. I'm not afraid. That's because the item was on you to begin with. I sensed it long ago. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled into a smile as she spoke. Then why did you let me lead the way? Godchild of 10,000 swords was stunned for a moment. Then, he suddenly reacted and looked at Ning Tian. F***ck, you tricked me? Looks like you're pretty smart. Ning Tian's lips curled into a smile. What? Godchild of 10,000 swords felt as if he was struck by lightning. His eyes were filled with deep shock as he looked at the smiling Ning Tian. Instantly, a cold light appeared on his back as he broke out in cold sweat. The Ning Tian in front of him gave him the feeling that everything was going according to his plan. This person's shrewdness is far above mine. He deserves to be called a cunning old fox. Godchild 10,000 swords was drenched in cold sweat. Hand it over. A cold light flashed in Ning Tian's eyes as he said faintly. At this moment, Godchild of 10,000 swords did not dare to say another word. He quickly took out a small jade bottle from his storage ring and handed it to Ning Tian with trembling hands. Indeed, it's the essence of the divine sacred pond. Ning Tian took it and looked at the few drops of blood in the jade bottle. A glint flashed in his eyes as the corner of his lips curled up slightly. With the essence of the divine sacred pond. The divine sacred pond's constitution would allow him to go up another level. Say, Senior, can you let me go now? Godchild of 10,000 swords asked with a trembling voice. What do you think? Ning Tian looked at Godchild of 10,000 swords with a kind smile on his face. This time, Godchild of 10,000 swords immediately understood what Ning Tian meant. His face immediately turned furious. You tramp, even if I die, I won't let you off easily. As soon as he said that, he wanted to fight back. However, Ning Tian had already seen through his little trick. With a casual slap, Godchild of 10,000 swords was sent flying while vomiting blood and crashed heavily onto the ground. At the same time, the jade pendant in his arm shattered, and a terrifying power came from the sky. Boom! The sky roared. The moment the sound was heard, the expressions of countless cultivators around changed again. What's going on? That slap just now. Is it happening again? Everyone looked up at the sky. The sound of swords rang continuously as a terrifying sword chi shook the surroundings. Who is it? How dare you hurt my son? A 10,000 feet tall shadow appeared in the sky, and its voice was deafening with a trace of endless pressure. Along with this angry roar, even the swords at the waists of the surrounding cultivators began to resonate with each other. They continuously emitted clanging sounds that lingered in the ears. This is the divine shadow. This is the divine sword shadow. Even if godly state experts can't descend to the lower realm from the deity realm due to the restrictions of the rules of heaven and earth, they can still cast the divine sword shadow through the token. Although the power of this shadow is far less than that of godly state experts, it's not something a 9 tribulations great emperor can compare to. Di Wuji frowned, and his eyes were full of seriousness. He wanted to see what would happen under this move. How would the ancestral master block it? Father, save me! Seeing his father, the god of swords, cast the divine sword shadow, the god of swords' eyes were filled with excitement. His savior had finally arrived. At this moment, Anai Hongi and the other girls who had just relaxed tensed up again. An even stronger expert had arrived. Could the ancestral master block it? The divine sword shadow of a godly state expert? Ning Tian frowned slightly. At the same time, the system's voice rang again. You shocked Di Wuji. You shocked the old ancestor of Wang Tian. You shocked and scared the void god great emperor to tears. You shocked Anai Hongi. You shocked millions of cultivators. The palm strike that destroyed the sect had already shocked everyone around. The shocking reward was naturally generous. Reward received. Divine Sword Strike. After using it, you can use the Divine Sword Strike. The effect is needless to say, it will be nullified. Stop when necessary. Hearing the voice in his mind, the corners of Ning Tian's mouth lifted into a smile. So what if it was a divine sword shadow? It was still inferior to a cheat. Sorry. I've destroyed this sect, and I must kill this person too. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth lifted slightly. Then, divine sword strike. Use. Boom. In an instant, an aura that was completely superior to that of a Nine Tribulations great emperor erupted from his body, and he blasted a palm strike at the god of swords who had yet to make a move. In an instant, the god of swords' expression changed drastically. What? You are, boom. Without waiting for a reaction, the strike landed. Millions of cultivators were dumbfounded. The god of swords began to dissipate, and the unwilling voice of the god of swords rang at this moment. Who exactly are you? How dare you tell me your name? Haha. Ancestral master, I will never change my name. I am Ning Buxu of the Void God Heavenly Palace. Ning Tian sneered. Void God Heavenly Palace? What of Void God Heavenly Palace? It seems that those old fellows of the Void God Heavenly Palace in the God Realm want to fight with me. Chapter 368. In the Sky. The millions of cultivators could still hear the angry voice of the God of Swords as the God of Swords dissipated. Ning Buxu? Haha. What a Void God Heavenly Palace. What a Ning Buxu. The Void God Heavenly Palace? You killed my son and destroyed my ancient sect. I won't let any of those old fellows go. And you, kid, don't ever cross the ancient road to godhood. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death. In the sky. The terrifying power dissipated in an instant. This world. It finally returned to the silence that belonged to it. The millions of cultivators were stunned as they looked at the void in the sky. First, he razed the entire Wanjian immortal sect to the ground with his own strength. Then, he defeated the God of Swords' shadow with one move. Such powerful strength. It was enough to make people go crazy. At this moment, among the millions of cultivators, many of them had a trace of worship. Unfortunately, it was only a trace of worship. Only a small part of it turned into faith. At the same time, the system's voice kept ringing in his mind. A portion of worship has been detected. It has been converted into faith energy. Absorb. Hearing the voice, Ning Tian nodded slightly without hesitation. Yes, absorb. Absorbing faith energy. Faith energy +1. Faith energy +1. Faith energy +1. Faith energy +1. Soon, the system's voice faded. Currently, faith energy collected 400001000000. Only 40,000? Ning Tian frowned slightly. The millions of cultivators had only provided him with 40,000 faith energy. It seemed that this was far from enough to make them truly believe in him. At this moment, the millions of cultivators were silent. They did not dare to breathe loudly. Even if the young man in the sky had just robbed them, they did not dare to have any thoughts. So powerful, Di Wuji clenched his fists and looked at Ning Tian with a burning gaze. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. As for the Void God Emperor, he was completely dumbfounded. When he heard Sword God 10,000 Swords' final words, he knew that the experts of the Void God Heavenly Palace in the Divine Domain were about to meet a tragic end. Originally, he wanted to borrow some of the power of the Void God Heavenly Palace's Divine Domain to strengthen himself. Now, even his last chance was gone. Ning Buxu! Ning Buxu! What a good Ning Buxu! At this moment, the Void God Heavenly Palace was filled with regret. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have coveted the qualifications to enter the Heavenly Spirit Region's ancient road to godhood. They also wouldn't have attacked the Tianma cult. If they had done so, they wouldn't have provoked such a great god. But it was a pity. There was no medicine for regret in this world. There was handsome Ning before, and now there's Ning Buxu. Ancestral Master is really just a few words, and he destroyed a major force. Moon Spirit's eyes sparkled as she watched the scene unfold. At this moment, in the sky, Ning Tian's figure flashed and shot toward the ground. He didn't forget that there was still a guy who wasn't dead yet. Sword God 10,000 Swords sat on the ground with a look of despair. When he saw Ning Tian descending from the sky, his entire body trembled and his pupils shrank. His eyes were filled with deep fear. He hurriedly spoke. "No, don't kill," however. Before he could finish his words, flames suddenly appeared and flickered like a cold sword light. Sword God 10,000 Swords' head fell to the ground and his soul scattered. You bastard, you don't play by the rules, aha! Sword God 10,000 Swords never thought that Ning Tian would directly attack and kill him without saying a word. According to the rules, shouldn't he beg for mercy and Ning Tian say a few words and let him live a little longer? For a dead person, Ning Tian was never willing to say a word. He wanted to kill. Just straight to the point. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Ning Tian looked at the sky and saw the three forces looking at him. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Brother Void God, I feel that you might not be peaceful recently. You should go back and rest first. I'll call you if there's anything. The Void God Emperor was silent for a moment and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. Damn it! Who is the reason I'm not peaceful? The Void God Emperor felt wronged, but he didn't dare to say it. Yes, Ancestral Master. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. The Void God Emperor swallowed his saliva and said to the two beside him while crying and laughing. Then, he staggered into the void as if his entire body had been hollowed out. Seeing this, millions of cultivators silently sympathized. This was great. Not only was the Void God Emperor really weak, but even the old Void Gods in the deity realm were weak. Seeing this, Ning Tian smiled. The current Void God Heavenly Palace was almost the same whether he got rid of them or not. If he didn't get rid of them, they might still be useful. Then, he looked at the millions of cultivators and waved his hand gently. All right, everyone, let's disperse. Let's go back to our homes and find our mothers. Yes, Ancestral Master. At this moment, how could the millions of cultivators dare to disobey? They nodded obediently and were about to leave. However, at this moment, a dignified voice sounded. Ning Buxu, Emperor wants to fight with you. The voice sounded. The crowd was in an uproar. They saw. In the sky. Di Wuji's eyes were filled with battle intent as he looked at Ning Tian, eager to fight. After all, Di Wuji was known as the strongest Imperial Emperor in the Chaos Imperial Realm in the Firmament Territory. Now that he finally saw another powerful opponent, he could not control his battle intent. Fight. Eager to fight. The strongest Imperial Emperor is going to fight with Ning Buxu. This is going to be a great battle. I'm willing to call it a one-on-one battle between real men. I'm really looking forward to it. At this moment, the millions of cultivators who were about to leave could not help but stop and look at the sky. Fight with me? Ning Tian did not panic at all and only chuckled. Then, he stretched lazily and said helplessly, "It's fine. Since the Imperial Emperor wants to come, I can only drag my weak body and fight with you." He agreed. They're going to fight. Hearing this, the millions of cultivators widened their eyes full of anticipation. Ancestral Master, and I Hongi and the other girls were also worried. Just when everyone was looking forward to it, Di Wuji frowned slightly. "Are you weak?" "It's okay. I'm just a little exhausted. It won't affect the battle." Ning Tian waved his hand casually with a calm face. Di Wuji frowned and then slowly shook his head. "Forget it. Since Ning Buxu is weak, then forget it. No matter what, Emperor will not take advantage of this situation. He had his own plans to rule the entire Wuji dynasty. However, as the strongest imperial emperor, Di Wuji. Moreover, he had the pride of a powerhouse." Chapter 369. If that's the case, then forget it. It's just a pity. Upon hearing that, Ning Tian pretended to be regretful and could only wave his hand. However, the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. Fight with Di Wuji? What kind of joke was that? Without the small card, there was still a gap between him and Di Wuji. After all, he had only cultivated for a year. What about Di Wuji? It had been at least a few thousand years. There was a gap. That was for sure. Now that Di Wuji had taken the initiative to give up, it would not seem like he was a coward. It was killing two birds with one stone. After all, he had once used his best actor acting skills to scare away a demon god from the demon clan. Ning Tian was certain that Di Wuji would be unyielding as a powerhouse. Upon hearing Ning Tian's words, Di Wuji frowned slightly. According to what Ning Buxu said, even if his body was weak, he was not inferior to him. Di Wuji? At this moment, Di Wuji looked at Ning Tian with an even more serious gaze. This was definitely a powerhouse who could fight with him. At this moment, Di Wuji completely regarded Ning Tian as a super powerhouse. His desire to win was even stronger. However, if he knew that Ning Tian, whom he regarded as a powerhouse who could fight with him, was only a one-star god emperor, how would he feel? Sigh. It's such a pity. I still want to see a real man's one-on-one battle. Sigh. Let's go. If we don't leave, I'm afraid Ning Buxu will rob us. Since there was no longer a great battle, the cultivators in the vicinity all left, returning to their own homes and looking for their mothers. The Chaos Grand Meet came to an end in an extremely strange manner. However, this time's event was the most shocking and the most exciting one so far. No one expected it. First, the ancestral master robbed 1,000,000 cultivators. Then, there was the violent beating of the divine son of 10,000 swords. Then, there was the annihilation of a sect with one palm strike and the defeat of a heaven god's shadow with one move. These were enough to be passed down through the ages. Alright, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Ning Tian glanced at Di Wuji and Wang Tian, old ancestor, who had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He spoke casually and was about to leave. Fellow Daoist Ning, if fate wills it, we will meet again. When the time comes, we must decide the victor. Di Wuji waved at Ning Tian before stepping into the void and disappearing. Seeing this, Ning Tian turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, the old ancestor of Wang Tian called out to him. Fellow Daoist Ning, please wait. Ning Tian paused and glanced at the old man who was still vomiting blood. He frowned and said, Mr. Vomiting Blood, why are you looking for me? Old ancestor Wang Tian froze for a moment. He wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth and coughed dryly. This old man is old ancestor Wang Tian of Heavencraft Pavilion. Fellow Taoist Ning can just call me fellow Taoist Wang Tian. Okay, Mr. Vomiting Blood, Ning Tian replied. Sky-gazing old ancestor. Cough, cough, forget it, fellow Taoist Ning can call me whatever you want, as long as you are happy. He waved his hand. Okay, old man Wang Tian. The corner of old ancestor Wang Tian's mouth twitched, and he shook his head helplessly. It's like this. 3 days later, my pavilion master wants to invite fellow Taoist Ning to a gathering at the Heaven and Earth Inn in the Chaos Emperor City. I wonder if fellow Taoist Ning has, however. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Ning Tian. I'm not free. Ning Tian waved his hand. Old ancestor Wang Tian touched his nose and smiled bitterly. If fellow Taoist Ning is not free, then it's fine. My pavilion master just wants to catch up with fellow Taoist and talk about the things in Dongxing country. He also said that fellow Taoist Ning's story is indeed the best story since ancient times. Dongxing country? Hearing this, Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. The figure of a young man flashed across his mind. He seemed to have thought of something and frowned. He looked at old ancestor Wang Tian. Is your pavilion master called Qingejiang? That's right. Old ancestor Wang Tian smiled and stroked his beard. Okay. Let me arrange it. When I'm free, I'll come. Ning Tian's expression did not change much. After saying that casually, he turned around and flew toward Enai Hongi and the others. Seeing this, old ancestor Wang Tian could not help but smile bitterly. Countless top experts were willing to pay any price just to see the pavilion master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and ask him to do a divination. However, the young man in front of him, who turned around and left without hesitation, did not take it to heart at all. I really don't know what kind of person he is. Old ancestor Wang Tian shook his head and sighed slightly. Very soon, the group returned to Chaos Emperor City. According to the schedule, Enai Hongi and the others were not in a hurry to return to the ethereal sect, so they simply stayed in Chaos Emperor City for the next few days. In Chaos Emperor City, it was also incomparably lively. The story of the patriarch had been spreading. In the room of the Blue Sky Inn. Phew, these million cultivators are really poor. These treasures, it seems that not many of them can be used. Also, what the hell is this pile of pig feed? However, there are a few useful immortal medicines. Ning Tian withdrew from the storage ring. Although there were mountains of treasures in the storage ring, there were very few that could be used at the moment. It seemed that, the next time he gathered treasures, he would choose some rich people. Ning Tian murmured. Then, he took out a few medicinal herbs from the storage ring, condensed a furnace of wind and thunder, and began to refine pills. The pills he wanted to refine, together with the ones he refined last time and the blood essence of the heavenly sacred pond, were enough to let him break through again. Whoosh! Soon, the pill fire burned. In the furnace, the flames were boiling and waves of medicinal fragrance wafted out. In less than half an hour, a round pill fell into Ning Tian's hand. With a wave of his hand, the furnace transformed by wind and thunder instantly dissipated. Waves of medicinal fragrance wafted in the room, making one feel refreshed. Phew! Finally, the refinement was successful. Ning Tian let out a long sigh of relief, and took out the pills that he refined previously and the blood essence of the heavenly sacred pond in the small jade bottle. Next, it was to consume it. The blood essence entered his body and the 2 pills suppressed it. Success or failure depends on this move. There was a murmur in the room. As time passed, there was a trace of scorching temperature in the room. It was faintly circulating and there was something wrong with the aura. Oh no. Damn. That bastard mixed the spiritual herbs with the aphrodisiac and contaminated the original spiritual herbs with this aura? Are you kidding me? Ning Tian suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were crimson red, and his gaze was burning. It was as if he had turned into a beast. But at this moment, there was no way to vent. Damn it, I'm in trouble because of the robbery. He scolded loudly. At this moment, he vaguely lost his mind. All he wanted was to vent and release. But, at this moment, a bell-like chuckle sounded like a gust of cool wind. A beautiful figure appeared out of thin air in the room. Her cold and delicate body plunged into the fiery embrace. Chapter 370. In the room, two figures were entangled. In his days, Ning Tian saw a beautiful face. But at this moment, his consciousness was almost blurred, and he couldn't figure out who this woman was. His mind had long been damaged by the deceptive spiritual medicine, and he had lost his mind. In his mind, he only knew how to take. The ice-cold body in his arms was like an ice-cold antidote to the scorching heat, or perhaps the last straw to save his life. Once he grabbed her, he was unwilling to let go. Roar! Ning Tian's eyes were burning, and his pupils were full of red light. He let out a low roar from his throat and pressed the body in his arms under his body. "Ha ha! I really don't know what to do with you," she chuckled. Then, a white and tender hand slightly raised, and a rich spiritual energy formed a boundary that enveloped the entire room. A soft murmur followed. Accompanied by a burst of bell-like laughter, there seemed to be a burst of music in the room. A few hours later, the endless taking seemed to have stopped. In the room, there was a decadent fragrance. Ning Tian closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. The heat in his body dissipated at this moment. Without the poison of the spring elixir, the blood in his body finally began to flow normally. He began to cultivate and break through. This time, with the blood from the divine pond, he wanted to try to break through to the peak of the initial level of the divine body. Boom! Inside his body, his chi and blood were surging. The waves of spiritual energy were like mountains and seas, constantly surging out. What kind of movement will the founder cause this time? At the bedside, the beautiful woman was naked, holding her smooth chin with her hand, and looking curiously at Ning Tian, who was sitting cross-legged in front of her. At this moment, the endless aura in Ning Tian's body condensed, and vaguely, there was the momentum of a breakthrough. Although it was only a single drop of blood essence, the improvement it brought to him was far greater than that. Ning Tian already had a large amount of energy in his body, and this drop of blood essence was merely a catalyst for it. Boom! In his dantian, his several spiritual seas were constantly surging, as if there were stormy waves. Vaguely. Originally, there were only 3 spiritual seas in his dantian, but now the 3 spiritual seas were showing signs of merging. The pinnacle of the small success stage of the heavenly God body meant having an endless spiritual sea. It was inexhaustible and inexhaustible. Using one's own body as the spirit sea, self-sufficient. Boom. It was also at this moment that his strength continued to rise. Host's physique has begun to improve. Host's strength has also broken through. Current 1-star God Emperor realm. Trying to break through. The system's voice rang out in his mind. However, Ning Tian ignored him. Currently, the only thing he could maintain was his consciousness, a consciousness that was constantly breaking through. A series of explosions could be heard. Within his dantian, the 3 great spiritual seas finally began to merge together, and a terrifying spiritual energy was emitted from the churning spiritual seas. That was endless spirit sea. Host, breaking through on your own. Breaking through. 1-star God Emperor realm. 2 stars God Emperor realm. 3 stars God Emperor realm. Currently, he has broken through to 3 stars of the God Emperor realm. The celestial constitution is attempting to reach the pinnacle of lesser mastery. Boom. Rumble. At this moment, the sky above the Chaos Emperor city, which was originally bright, was suddenly filled with dark clouds. Streaks of lightning began to strike from the sky. Every single one of them. They were all extremely terrifying. Boom. Many cultivators in the Chaos Emperor city were so frightened that they hurriedly looked up at the sky. What was going on now? Why was it so chaotic recently? Rumble. In the sky, there were continuous roars that turned into the roar of a thunder dragon. Streaks of furious lightning struck toward the Chaos Emperor city. All of a sudden, countless houses were smashed into pieces, and the ground cracked. However, no one dared to stop it. They could not see through this unknown lightning tribulation. Ah! Damn, the flying pig that I just summoned was struck to death again. Somewhere in the Chaos Emperor city, Taoist priest Flying Pig looked at the flying pig that had been struck by the lightning tribulation. After cursing, tears flowed out of his mouth. Which Taoist is undergoing the tribulation here? At the same time, the entire primal Chaos Emperor city was troubled by the lightning tribulation. Initially, a group of experts wanted to stop it. However, when they saw an 8-star god emperor being severely injured by the lightning tribulation, they instantly calmed down. As for those great emperors, they watched silently. They looked at the scene silently. They naturally knew that this lightning tribulation was no ordinary lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation lasted for more than an hour. The area around the sky blue inn was basically destroyed by the lightning tribulation. Only the sky blue inn was still intact. The commotion caused by the lightning tribulation had already alarmed Ni Hongi and the others. Sect Master, what happened? Elder Tian Feng ran out of the room with a lingering fear in his heart. He was still cultivating when he was awakened by the muffled thunder, and he could no longer enter the state of cultivation. I don't know. Ni Hongi shook her head softly. Looking at the room where Ning Tian was, she suddenly frowned. Why did she feel that the ancestral master's room was covered by a layer of spiritual energy barrier? Furthermore, she could not see through the spiritual energy barrier at all. This meant that the strength of the person who cast the spiritual energy barrier was far above her. Could it be caused by the ancestral master? Ni Hongi frowned slightly and her expression was a little strange. At this moment, in the room, Ning Tian suddenly opened his eyes and the blood in his body surged. At the same time, the lightning tribulation in the sky surged in his direction. Rumble! In an instant, a huge hole was blasted in the ceiling of the sky blue inn. Break it! He shouted in a low voice. The divine lightning entered his body and his aura surged. Congratulations, host, for increasing your physique. Currently, Heaven God Physique, peak small success. Current strength, 3-star God Emperor Realm. Along with the system's voice, Ning Tian's lips curled into a satisfied smile. However, just as he was about to stand up, there was a loud rumble and the entire sky blue inn began to collapse. But before he could react, a voice rang out. Suddenly, a jade-like hand reached out and grabbed his hand, pulling him into the void. Rumble! At the same time, the sky blue inn turned into a pile of ruins. It's collapsed? At the moment of the collapse, almost all the guests flashed at the same time. That was why they were not hit by the ruins. After all, if they could not react in time, they were not worthy of being a cultivator. What the F***CK? The owner of the Sky Blue Inn had just returned. Seeing the inn that he had operated for many years turn into ruins in the blink of an eye, he was dumbfounded and at a loss for a moment. Are you all okay? Ni Hongi looked at the few people beside her and asked. We're fine. Moon Spirit and the other girls shook their heads slightly. They looked around and could not help but feel puzzled. Where's the ancestral master? They did not see Ning Tian around. At the same time in the void. Chapter 371. At this moment. In the void. Hee, ancestral master, long time no see. Did you miss me? Ning Tian was holding a beautiful body in his arms. Most importantly, it was naked. That familiar bell-like laughter rang in his ears. Ning Tian was stunned for a moment, and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. Queen Mother of the West, why are you here? At this moment, images flashed in his mind, and he suddenly thought of something. Just now, was that you? Of course it was me. The Queen Mother of the West raised her head, and her beautiful face was full of charm. She giggled and snuggled up to Ning Tian's chest. As for why I came, of course it's because I miss you. Wuching actually wanted to come, but unfortunately, there are too many things to do in the Tianling region. She can't handle it. I've been a hands-off manager for many years. I want to help her, but I don't know where to start. The Queen Mother of the West was angry and helpless. Wife, Ning Tian murmured, and a hint of gentleness flashed in his eyes. Luo Wuching was in charge of the entire Tianling region alone, and it was obviously very difficult. It seems that after the Tianling region stabilizes, I'll bring my wife over. The Tianling region is stable, and we won't be afraid of it for the time being. The Tianling region is only a starting point. He had already made a decision in his heart. The Tianling region was only a starting point, and the Great Emperor was not the end. If he wanted to protect his loved ones, this was far from enough. Only by constantly becoming stronger could he have the ability to protect his loved ones. This was something that Ning Tian would always remember in her heart. In his arms, the Queen Mother of the West raised her head slightly and looked at Ning Tian curiously. Ancestral Master, along the way, I heard a lot of rumors about Ning Buxu in the Chaos Emperor city. I think this Ning Buxu should be you, right? Yes? Ning Tian held the delicate body in his arms and nodded slightly. What exactly happened? The Queen Mother of the West was curious. Her beautiful eyes widened, and she subconsciously moved closer. That unique body fragrance made Ning Tian's mouth dry up. After all, the person in his arms was the person he loved. Moreover, it had been a long time since he had eaten meat, so he couldn't control himself. Ancestor? Shi Wangmu leaned over and breathed into Xiao Chen's ear. Then, she purposely spoke in a much gentler tone, adding a hint of temptation. Ning Tian's whole body trembled in an instant, and he glared fiercely at his little wife in his arms. This concubine. Day after day, she only knew how to seduce him. Cough, cough. Ning Tian let out a dry cough. Then, his hands wandered around as if nothing had happened. In an instant, the Queen Mother in his arms blushed. At the same time, Ning Tian told her about the recent events. 10 minutes later, the two of them were breathing heavily. The Queen Mother of the West's face was rosy, and she looked very cute. After listening to Ning Tian's words, she couldn't help but giggle. Ha ha! Ancestor, the Void God Heavenly Palace has been screwed over by you. The Queen Mother of the West smiled. Her smile was so captivating and mesmerizing. Ning Tian couldn't help but stare at her in a daze. His concubine was so beautiful. Ancestor, what are you looking at? The Queen Mother of the West was being stared at by that pair of passionate eyes. Even she felt a little shy. Nothing. The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled up into a sinister smile. His large hand reached out and pulled his little wife closer to him. I just want to see if my little wife has gotten fatter. No way. No matter if it was a mortal or a cultivator. As long as it was a woman, she would definitely not be able to bear the word fat. Sure enough, the Queen Mother of the West pouted and snorted. Then, she proudly puffed out her chest and snorted. I'm not fat. I'm a 9 tribulations great emperor. How can I be fat? Indeed, there's meat where there should be meat. Ning Tian glanced at her and nodded with satisfaction. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a mysterious smile. Actually, my name, Ning Buxu, has another meaning besides screwing over the Void God Heavenly Palace. Meaning? What meaning? This attracted the Queen Mother of the West's curiosity. Do you want to know? The corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled up. Yes. The Queen Mother of the West nodded heavily. If you want to know, call me husband. Ning Tian's eyes were smiling. Husband? The Queen Mother of the West blushed. Although Ning Tian had already explained the meaning of wife and husband to the two women, she was a little shy to call him that. After all, in her heart, Luo Wuqing was always the first. She was the legal wife. But, the Queen Mother of the West clenched her silver teeth and hesitated. I really don't know what's going on in your little head. Ning Tian rubbed the Queen Mother of the West's hair with a gentle face. He whispered in her ear, You are all my wives. Wuqing is the first wife, and you are naturally the second wife. They are all my beloved ones. Hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West fell silent. Her soft heart seemed to be touched. She nodded slightly and let out a soft voice. Husband. Although it was soft, it was enough to ignite the strongest flame in her heart. I'll tell you what Ning Buxu is. Ning Tian lowered his head slightly and looked at the Queen Mother of the West, whose beautiful face was red like a blooming flower. He lowered his head slightly. Their lips met. Woo, the Queen Mother of the West widened her beautiful eyes. Soon, her beautiful eyes were like water, sinking into it. In the blink of an eye. A day had passed. And Hongi and the others still could not find Ning Tian. It was as if he had mysteriously disappeared. Helpless. And Hongi could only leave some information on the spot and find another inn. This inn happened to be the Heaven and Earth Inn. Heaven and Earth Inn. Hey, why do you think a person suddenly disappeared? Yuqin drank a mouthful of wine with a dumbfounded expression. At the side, the few people from the ethereal sect did not speak. Tian Xiang lowered her head, feeling a little nervous. If the patriarch disappeared without a word, what should her clan do? Awu. The flame-sealing Lion King sat on a stool and also drank wine. The diners next to him were dumbfounded. Lion King Shabi, do you also think that the patriarch was taken away by the witch in the void? Yuqin and the flame-sealing Lion King had their arms around each other's shoulders as they drank wine. I heard that there is some void witch. She specially captures handsome people. The patriarch is so handsome. He must have been taken away by the void witch. Burp. As she spoke, she hiccuped. Roar. The flame-sealing Lion King kept howling. Lion language. This damn master. He went behind Master Lion King's back to pick up girls and didn't bring Master Lion King along. How can this be? Looking at the woman and lion drinking wine, and Hongi and the others shook their heads helplessly. Yuqin, there is no such thing as a void witch. It's just a folk legend. Moon Spirit could not help but shake her head. Impossible, there must be. Yuqin muttered and took another sip of wine. What is it? At this moment, a hearty laugh sounded from the side. Chapter 372. Ancestral Master? Hearing the familiar voice, Hongi and the others were delighted. They immediately turned around to look. They saw. The void in the inn fluctuated. Then, two figures stepped out of the void. That handsome young man was dressed in black, and beside him was a peerless beauty. She was dressed in a purple dress, outlining her graceful figure. From afar, these two people were simply a match made in heaven. It's the ancestral master. It's Ning Buxu? Who's beside him? She's so beautiful. I've never seen such a beautiful woman in my life. Ah, they're a match made in heaven. Are you still looking? If you keep looking, don't you want your dog eyes anymore? That's Ning Buxu's woman. How dare you look at her? Are you tired of living? You're right. F***ck, forget it. I'm blind. Soon. The diners in the Heaven and Earth Inn were discussing and exclaiming how compatible the two were. She's so beautiful. And Hongi and Tian Xiang looked at the Queen Mother of the West beside Ning Tian. They felt ashamed of their inferiority. This woman was so beautiful that even they couldn't compare to her. Wow. It's the Void Enchantress. Senior sister, that's not a rumor. It's the truth. Moon Spirit smiled bitterly and shook her head slightly. She wasn't drunk. She knew who the woman beside Ning Tian was. She was the Jade Lake Sacred Master, the Ancestral Master's concubine. Ancestral Master, where have you been? Who is this? And Hongi and the others looked over and asked curiously. Did the Ancestral Master disappear for a while, and bring back a beautiful woman? Damn. That's amazing. Seeing the Queen Mother of the West and the Flame Lion King, he became obedient. Ahem. The two matriarchs still needed to be wary. Shah Bai understood that the ancestor was very strong, but his two wives were each stronger than the other. Moreover, they were ridiculously strong. He absolutely couldn't let the two mistresses misunderstand that he, the Sealing Flame Lion King, was bringing the ancestor to pick up girls. Otherwise, it could be on the dining table soon. What's wrong, Shabby Lion King? Let's continue drinking. Bert. Yuqin was in a daze. She took a sip of wine and placed her hand on the Lion King's furry shoulder, saying, "Didn't you just say that you were going to take the patriarch to pick up girls?" Woo! Instantly. The Sealing Flame Lion King felt a cold gaze land on it. It howled, turned into a small lion, and curled up in Yuqin's arms. It's over. I, Master Lion, am finished. By the side. Hearing their words, Ning Tian smiled and said softly, I just went to the void to fight. As for this one, she's one of my two wives. Fight in the void? And Hongi and the others were stunned for a moment, but soon heard the second half of the patriarch's words. All of them had a strange expression as they looked at the Queen Mother of the West, not knowing what to say. The few of you must be the patriarch's friends. He mentioned it a little. The Queen Mother of the West said softly with a smile on her face. She still addressed him as the patriarch. Perhaps it was hard to adapt for a while. The word husband could only be said when the two of them were alone. Seeing the serious look on the Queen Mother of the West's face, Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. The corners of his mouth rose slightly as he looked at the Queen Mother of the West with interest. This was the alarm of the main wife? For some reason, Hongi and the other girls didn't know what to say. They were all speechless and felt a little awkward. Especially Tian Xiang. There was always a feeling of being caught in the act. Seeing the strange expressions of the girls, the Queen Mother of the West raised her eyebrows and a smile appeared on her face. She seemed to understand a lot. Then, she quietly approached Ning Tian, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. Using a voice that only the two of them could hear, she murmured, Good job, hubby. It seems that without me and Wuqing, you've been living quite comfortably. No way. Heaven and earth can be my witness. I didn't even touch them. Your husband is a decent man. Ning Tian quickly responded. It wasn't that he was afraid of his wife. The main thing was that he didn't eat them. He couldn't just say that he didn't eat them. Haha, what a decent man. The Queen Mother of the West smiled and glanced at Ning Tian with her seductive eyes. Looking at the intimate appearance of the two, many wolf howls came from the heaven and earth inn. Am I here to eat or to eat dog food? Moreover, the most infuriating thing was that Ning Buxu had a wife. This wife was so beautiful. The other one must be not bad. She might even be prettier. For a moment, all the diners had tears in their eyes as they ate silently. They could hear the sound of their hearts breaking. Damn. Infuriating. The more the diners thought about it, the angrier they became. They couldn't wait to eat their plates. Looking at the intimate appearance of the two, Hongi and the others felt that they couldn't leave or stay. Right at this moment, the Queen Mother of the West's eyes fell on Tian Xiang. Suddenly, she walked over, stretched out her hand, and gently lifted Tian Xiang's face. Seeing this scene, Ning Tian felt a pang of guilt. Could it be that this mistress had discovered something? However, he didn't do anything. Saint Lord? At this moment, Hongi frowned and looked at the Queen Mother of the West. At this moment, after Moon Spirit's explanation, She also understood the origin and identity of the Queen Mother of the West. Seeing the Queen Mother lift Moon Spirit's pretty face, she immediately stood up. Even if she was the wife of the ancestral master, Tianxiang was still her disciple. Tianxiang didn't dare to move, but she was a little confused. She vaguely felt that the woman in front of her had a familiar aura. "Don't be nervous," the Queen Mother of the West chuckled. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, she waved her hand gently. A terrifying spiritual energy barrier enveloped them. Damn! A Nine Tribulations great emperor! Even a demigod! It was just a wisp of aura. Elder Tianfeng was scared out of his wits. Immediately, he looked at Ning Tian with admiration and secretly gave him a thumbs up. As expected of the ancestral master. Even his wife is so powerful. Awesome ancestral master. This was the dream of all men. The absolute seductive Fox clan. I haven't seen them for a long time, but I seem to have sensed them in Divine Land City. At this moment, the Queen Mother of the West slowly spoke. Her words shocked everyone. How did she know? Hongyi's beautiful eyes were a little nervous. Her pair of beautiful eyes fell on the Queen Mother of the West. The Queen Mother of the West. She wouldn't attack Tianxiang, right? Hearing his little wife's words, Ning Tian raised his eyebrows. He seemed to have thought of something. It seems that my little wife has the absolute seductive fox demon physique. Could it be that the two are related? Immediately, he touched the back of the Queen Mother of the West. Caught off guard, the Queen Mother of the West subconsciously cried out. She quickly covered her red lip. Her pretty face was crimson red. She glared at Ning Tian and pouted. "Ancestral Master, what are you doing?" Chapter 373. The Queen Mother of the West glared at Ning Tian and blushed. This guy. He actually touched her buttocks? Although she didn't mind, she was still a little shy in front of so many people. He wanted to touch her. Then let's go back to the room and slowly touch her. "Oh, I just wanted to see if you have a foxtail." Ning Tian silently retracted his hands. Although they were very soft, he still maintained a casual look. Foxtail? Hongyi and the others were stunned. "I am not from the charming Sky Fox clan." The Queen Mother rolled her eyes at Ning Tian. What was this ancestral master thinking all day long? Although she vaguely guessed that Ning Tian knew about her physique, it was a pity that she was not from the charming Sky Fox clan. Sigh, that's a pity. Ning Tian pursed his lips. If his little wife was from the charming Sky Fox clan, then hugging a beast-eared girl to sleep at night, that furry feeling, he did not dare to think about it. If he continued to think about it, he might have a nosebleed. It seems that you are quite regretful. The Queen Mother glanced at Ning Tian and snorted. Although I am not from the charming Sky Fox clan, there is a part of the nine-tailed Sky Fox clan's bloodline in my body. Theoretically, if the bloodline is pure enough, the scene in your heart may appear. At this point, the Queen Mother's lips curved into a meaningful smile and winked at Ning Tian. Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. Then, he wiped the saliva at the corner of his mouth, as if nothing had happened. He coughed dryly and spread out his hands innocently. What I am thinking? I am not thinking about anything. Is that so? Shi Wangmu had a smile in her eyes. She saw through him with one glance. This guy, the perverted thoughts in his head were almost engraved on his face. However, I like it. That, Lord Saint. At this moment, Tianxiang clenched her jade-like hands and looked at the Queen Mother of the West with her beautiful eyes. You said that you have the blood of the nine-tailed fox demon in your body? Is this real? Haha, of course. The corners of the Queen Mother's mouth lifted slightly, and then she slowly raised her hand and lightly tapped Tianxiang's smooth forehead. Boom! Instantly, Tianxiang's eyes lost their luster. When she looked at Shi Wangmu, her expression changed. Shock appeared in her eyes. Her blood surged, and a might that came from the depths of her bloodline pressed down on her body. It was as if, behind the Queen Mother of the West, there seemed to be the shadow of a nine-tailed celestial fox. It's actually, really a nine-tailed celestial fox. Very soon, Tian Xiang's eyes regained their luster, and she covered her red lips in disbelief. What is going on? She was in disbelief. Shi Wangmu smiled and did not say anything. She only looked at Tian Xiang and said, "Come, let me see. A fox has 9 tails. How many tails have you cultivated?" Tian Xiang frowned slightly and looked at the diners around her, a little vigilant. If the demon race were to appear in this human city, it would be a very dangerous and frightening matter. There was only one kind of demon clan that could stay in a human city. The demon clan's slaves. For example, the cat demon maids were slaves for the humans to play with. Don't worry. I have just set up a barrier. No one can hear or see our conversation. Shi Wangmu waved her hand casually and chuckled. Moreover, even if someone finds out that you are a demon clan, I can guarantee your safety. Although there was a smile in her words, she was domineering. Seeing this scene, Ning Tian could not help but smile. After staying with Luo Wuqing for a long time, the aura of a concubine had unknowingly risen. Hearing this, Anai Hongyi and the others were secretly shocked. This might be the confidence of a 9 tribulations great emperor or even a demigod. Yes. Hearing this, Tian Xiang no longer hesitated. After nodding slightly, she was about to display her demon chi and release her demon fox body. Wait. At this moment, Shi Wangmu spoke, indicating for her to stop first. Under Tian Xiang's puzzled gaze, Shi Wangmu raised her jade-like hand. As the spiritual energy surged, she sealed the eyes of Elder Tianfeng and Lion King Shabi with spiritual energy. After doing all this, she clapped her hands. Okay, let's continue. Of all the men present, Ning Tian was the only one who could still watch. Sigh. Ning Tian sighed and hugged Shi Wangmu's soft body in his arms. You are indeed my concubine. You are so good. You even let me see your benefits. Tisk, Shi Wangmu snorted. Let me show you. Do you dare to do it? Hearing this, Ning Tian was speechless. It seemed. This concubine was going to be beaten. Yes. That's right. After hearing the Queen Mother's wild words, the girls blushed, especially Tian Xiang. When she thought of that night, not only did her face turn red, it was also very hot. Okay. Let's begin. Shi Wangmu looked at Tian Xiang and said, Yes. Tian Xiang nodded slightly. But this time, perhaps because not only was the ancestor present, but the ancestor's wife was also present. She did not choose to take off her clothes. Instead, she gently lifted her dress and 4 furry fox tails appeared behind her. This was not the end. A pair of twitching fox ears also appeared. It looked very cute. Senior sister Tian Xiang has become a fox girl. At the side, Yu Qin's face was red. Her eyes were wide open and filled with curiosity. Moon Spirit, who was beside her, was also curious. It turned out that the eldest senior sister of the ethereal sect had such an identity. You have 4 tails after cultivating for less than 100 years. Not bad. Seeing this scene, Shi Wangmu nodded in satisfaction. Thank you, senior, for your praise. Being stared at by so many people, even the cold Tian Xiang couldn't help but blush. She hurriedly thanked the Queen Mother and changed the way she addressed her. In her opinion, Shi Wangmu must have some relationship with the Heavenly Fox clan. Foxtail hee. At this moment, Yu Qin, who was drunk, walked over. Seeing the 4 furry tails behind Tian Xiang, she instantly had the urge to touch them. She laughed foolishly and pounced over. Ah! The moment she touched the fox tails, Tian Xiang's entire body trembled. Her chest rippled and her face turned red. Her 4 fox tails shrunk back into her body. The fox ears on her head twitched as if they were frightened. Seeing this, Moon Spirit hurriedly dragged away the drunken Yu Qin, who was yelling about touching the fox tail. Tian Xiang, what's wrong? And Hongi was puzzled. The fox tails of the Heavenly Fox clan can't be touched casually. Not only are they very sensitive, but they also have a special meaning. At the side, Shi Wangmu took a glance and slowly explained. I see. The girls were enlightened. At the side, Ning Tian also breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he did not touch them carelessly. Otherwise, something would have happened. However, looking at that furry fox tail and fox ears, he felt his heart itch. Who wouldn't love such a cute girl with fox ears? At the side, Shi Wangmu glanced at Ning Tian. Then, her lips curled into a charming smile. She leaned over and whispered in his ear. Do you like foxtails? Actually, I can do that too. Chapter 374. Beside his ear, her breath was like orchids. Instantly, Ning Tian felt his entire body go numb. Looking at the beautiful face that was almost within reach, he could not help but swallow his saliva. She could do it too? What could she do? Fox demon transformation? Gulp. Ning Tian's throat moved, his blood surging. He was a little excited, but as a decent person, he was definitely not excited because of the fox girl. He was purely curious. This was the difference between the fox girl and the human race. After all, winter was coming and it was colder. Hugging furry to sleep must be very comfortable. Cough cough. That was all. At this time, the Queen Mother of the West winked playfully at Ning Tian, making Ning Tian's heart itch. Later, he must ask this woman what was going on. The blush on Tian Xiang's face faded, and the furry fox tail and fox ears also disappeared. She had transformed from a fox demon into a human form. After doing all this, Tian Xiang looked at the Queen Mother of the West seriously and asked, Senior, what is going on? She wanted to understand. Why did the Queen Mother of the West, who was obviously a human race, have the bloodline of the charming fox clan in her body? Moreover, it was the most powerful nine-tailed fox bloodline. Logically speaking, this should be the purest bloodline of the charming fox clan. At the side, Hongi was also curious, and Moon's spirit also looked over after holding the unconscious Yuqin in her arms. Everyone's gaze fell on the Queen Mother of the West. The Queen Mother of the West was silent. Her expression was calm, but Ning Tian, who was by her side, clearly saw her desolate and sorrowful expression. He had never seen this kind of emotion on the Queen Mother of the West. Well, let's not talk about this. Ning Tian frowned slightly. He naturally did not want to see such an expression on his little wife's face. As he spoke, he gently patted the Queen Mother of the West's shoulder and gave her a comforting look. Hubby. Shi Wangmu was stunned for a moment. When she sensed the meaning in his eyes, she could not help but feel a sense of warmth in her heart. She reached out and gently held Ning Tian's arm. She smiled, causing all the flowers to pale in comparison. Even Hongi and the other girls, who were also women, were moved by her beautiful smile. Ning Tian smiled and looked at Tian Xiang. Tian Xiang, I agree to your request. As for the specifics, we'll talk about it when we get there. Really? Tian Xiang's beautiful eyes lit up when she heard these words. She became spirited as she stared at Ning Tian. It seemed as if she was afraid that he would go back on his words. Of course it's true. Ning Tian nodded. He could vaguely feel that the charming Sky Fox clan was closely related to his little wife. Since it was related to his wife, he had to go and take a look. Hearing the words of the duo, Shi Wangmu's eyebrows shot up as she turned her gaze over. The absolute seductive Fox clan is in trouble, Ning Tian said casually. Trouble? Shi Wangmu's eyes narrowed, but she only murmured and did not say anything else. Ancestral Master, when will it be? Tian Xiang asked. About that? Ning Tian pondered for a moment and said, in a few days. You don't seem to be in a hurry. Let me settle some of my own matters first. Yes, ancestral master. Tian Xiang nodded. Since the ancestral master had agreed, she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. That's not right. Senior sister Tian Xiang, when did you tell the ancestral master? Haven't you been with us all this time? At this moment, Yu Ling's doubtful voice came from the side. Tian Xiang could not help but feel a little confused. I told him when I had the time, she hurriedly said, with a guilty look on her face. Is that so? Yu Ling murmured. Seeing this scene, Shi Wangmu's lips curled into a playful smile. Her eyes wandered between Ning Tian and Tian Xiang. Then, a pair of jade-like hands quietly landed on the soft flesh on Ning Tian's waist. Dear, do you think, if Wu Qing knew about this, he would cut you? She licked her red lips with a teasing look. Ahem. Ning Tian coughed dryly, then quietly moved the pair of jade-like hands away from his waist. He said seriously, I believe that my little wife will not say anything, right? Hee, then I don't know. It depends on your performance. Shi Wangmu chuckled. Her eyes were full of mischief, and she emphasized the word performance. After that, she waved her jade-like hand, and the spiritual barrier around them dissipated. The Lion King and Elder Tianfeng also regained their vision. Awu, awu, awu. Finally, they regained their vision. The Lion King subconsciously howled and complained. Damn it! Even the Master had the privilege to see it. Why didn't Master Lion have it? This was unfair. Just as it was howling and complaining, it suddenly heard the Queen Mother of the West say intentionally or unintentionally, Why don't we have an extra meal tonight? Braised lion's head? Aolo, as soon as these words came out, the Lion King was terrified. It wanted to turn into a small one and hide in Yu Qin's arms, but it found that Yu Qin had already fainted. It could only howl and pretend to be unconscious. If he couldn't decide, he would pretend to be dead. Seeing this scene, the girls couldn't help but smile. It was simply a beautiful scene. Next, once the girls started talking, they couldn't stop. At the side, Ning Tian could only watch the girls discuss. But soon, he couldn't help it. Shi Wangmu, this woman, while talking to an Ai Hongyi and the others, actually provoked him from time to time. Who could tolerate this? After all, he was still curious about some things about the Queen Mother of the West. Immediately after, under the shocked gazes of the girls, Ning Tian grabbed the Queen Mother of the West and led her to the second floor of the Heaven and Earth Inn. What are you doing? The Queen Mother of the West exclaimed. Nothing, I'm just discussing some questions, Ning Tian said with a straight face. Hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West rolled her eyes and almost believed him. Why did I just wake up? Ancestral Master and the others are leaving? At this time, Yu Qin opened her eyes in a daze and looked at the backs of Ning Tian and the Queen Mother of the West. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Senior sister, what are they going to do? She looked at Moon Spirit in confusion. Nothing. Children shouldn't ask. Moon Spirit blushed and said casually, I'm not a child. Carrot? Yu Qin protested and fell down again. Seeing this, an Ai Hongyi and the others shook their heads helplessly. This girl, she couldn't drink the spiritual wine, but she insisted on drinking it. They couldn't stop her. At the corner of the second floor of the Heaven and Earth Inn, Ning Tian had just pulled the Queen Mother of the West up when he bumped into an acquaintance. Fellow Taoist Ning, are you looking for me? They saw Chen Gejiang, who claimed to be a bard, whom they met in Dongxing Kingdom's royal city that day, appeared in front of them. Or rather, the master of the heavenly secret pavilion, Chen Gejiang. Chapter 375. You're thinking too much. That's not the case. Ning Tian didn't even look at Chen Gejiang. What a joke. There was still business to be done. Who had the time to pay attention to him? Hearing this, Chen Gejiang touched his nose and smiled helplessly. Then let's talk about it when fellow Taoist Ning is free. I'll be at the Heaven and Earth Inn for the next few days, so I'm willing to wait for fellow Taoist Ning. Okay. Ning Tian nodded slightly, and then the two of them left in a hurry. Seeing this scene, Chen Gejiang was stunned on the spot. He smiled bitterly and touched his nose. Fellow Taoist Ning really doesn't give me any face at all. Pavilion Master, this guy doesn't give you any face at all. Should we give him some strong medicine and exhaust him to death? Wang Tian Patriarch said fiercely, with a cruel smile on his face. Ha! There's no need. Chen Gejiang smiled, played with the folding fan in his hand, and shook his head slightly. Let's go. There are still many heavenly secrets waiting for us to measure. Yes, Pavilion Master. The old man and the young man turned around and walked out of the Heaven and Earth Inn. By the way, Pavilion Master, I think that Ning Buxu is only a little more handsome than you. He has 2 beautiful wives. Pavilion Master, you've been single for so long. Do you want to find a wife? There's no need. Why don't I find you a cat demon maid? Heavens! Ahem, Pavilion Master, please calm down. I've said too much. In the room, an indescribable battle that wouldn't pass the interrogation had finally ended. The two of them hugged each other tightly. By the way, little wife, are you hiding something from me? Ning Tian gently hugged the Queen Mother of the West and helped her tidy up her messy hair. As she tidied her hair, she spoke casually. Hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West was silent for a moment and bit her red lips. Seeing this scene, Ning Tian chuckled and pinched her face. Forget it. Since there's something that you can't say, it's fine not to say it. If there was something that would open some scars in the Queen Mother's heart, he would rather not know. No, however, the Queen Mother of the West shook her head. A glint flashed in her beautiful eyes. She raised her head slightly and looked at Ning Tian. With a serious expression on her face, she said, "Fool, you are my husband. Even if you have some unspeakable troubles, if it's you, I don't mind tearing open the scar." Hearing this, Ning Tian was stunned. Next, he lifted her pretty face with his hand. Why are you still talking nonsense at this time? Just kiss her. A kiss. It was enough to contain many emotions that words could not convey. Several panting sounds could be heard in the room. Next, Ning Tian looked at Shi Wangmu and said gently, "Speak. It's fine. I'm always here." Yes. The Queen Mother of the West nodded her head vigorously. She held Ning Tian's hand tightly with her jade-like hands. Her red lips parted slightly as she slowly said, "Hubby, the reason why I have the 9-tailed fox's blood essence in my body is because of Yao Qi. In order to have the strength to shoulder the responsibility of the entire Jade Lake. More than 100 years ago, the ancient road to godhood opened. The former sacred lord of the Jade Lake sacred ground ignored Jade Lake and the true demon suppressed in Jade Lake. She led most of the strong people of Jade Lake away just to fight for a qualification on the ancient road to godhood. But the ending was very simple. She succeeded. However, the Jade Lake sacred ground was in danger because there was no strong person guarding it. I was the Yaoqi saintess at that time. I should bear the responsibility of reviving Jade Lake. So I, who was only 7 years old, was suppressed in the blood pool. With the blood exchange technique, I sacrificed half of my human blood to forcibly replace the mortal blood in my body and obtain the 9-tailed fox's blood essence. I still can't forget that kind of pain. The strong should do things that are impossible. I was born in the Jade Lake sacred ground. No one can bear this heavy responsibility except me. For Jade Lake, I am duty-bound. Speaking of this, the Queen Mother of the West raised her head slightly. There was a trace of determination in her beautiful eyes. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly. She looked at Ning Tian with a smile, a tired smile. "Hubby, I'm not a peerless genius like Heartless. I just have to bear a responsibility that I have to bear. As for the 9-tailed fox's bloodline, it has been passed down from my Jade Lake. Perhaps the charming fox clan has the answer. And after absorbing the nine-tailed fox's blood essence, I activated the charming physique. That's how the Queen Mother of the West is born. As for the former me, it's too long ago. As soon as she finished her sentence, Ning Tian frowned. The blood exchange technique. He had heard a little about it. Even the Sky Demon cult, a sect that worshipped demonic arts, was extremely wary of that technique. Extracting blood, and half of it at that, was already cruel enough in the first place. Moreover, it was mixed with the blood of the demon clan. This kind of blood was not interconnected with human blood and would even reject each other. It needed to be constantly fused in the body before it could finally settle. And every time it fused, it had to bear the pain of blood exchange. This pain was no less than pulling out tendons and bones. That meant that the 7-year-old Queen Mother of the West had already endured the pain of blood exchange tens of thousands of times. And all of this, just because the former Sacred Lord became a divine dream and the former Sacred Lord was irresponsible, she had to bear all the consequences. She had to bear a responsibility that she had to bear. Originally, Ning Tian thought that the Queen Mother of the West was just a hands-off shopkeeper. But in fact, that was not the case. He was wrong. What the Queen Mother of the West had endured and done for the Jade Lake sacred ground was far more than that. Under the Queen Mother of the West's playfulness was a responsibility. There was silence. Thousands of words were stuck in his throat. In the end, he stretched out his big hand and hugged the delicate body in his arms tightly. After a while, "Who is the former Sacred Lord to you, Master?" Ning Tian slowly spoke and looked at the Queen Mother of the West. He had just noticed that when the Queen Mother of the West mentioned the former Sacred Lord of the Jade Lake, her mood was obviously different. "She's my mother." The Queen Mother of the West's expression was a little complicated as she slowly spoke. Your mother?" Ning Tian was shocked. Didn't that mean that she was his mother-in-law? Yes. The Queen Mother of the West nodded slightly and sighed. Before Yao Shi, the Sacred Lord and Sacred Lady of the Jade Lake sacred ground were usually mother and daughter. But I didn't like this, so I abolished it. In that case, if you are called the Queen Mother of the West, then your mother is called the Queen Mother of the West. Ning Tian frowned slightly. The Queen Mother of the West looked at Ning Tian as if looking at a fool and shook her head helplessly. The Queen Mother of the West is the title of the Jade Lake Sacred Lord. Every Jade Lake Sacred Lord is called the Queen Mother of the West. So it's like this? Ning Tian was stunned. Then, doesn't that mean that you have a real name? Of course. The Queen Mother of the West nodded and glanced at Ning Tian bitterly. You don't even know the name of your little wife. Scumbag. Ning Tian looked aggrieved. You didn't mention this. Then. He took a deep breath and turned the Queen Mother of the West over and hugged her from behind. Their faces were close to each other. Then, my dear little wife, what is your name? Hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West's expression was a little complicated. Her red lips opened slightly and said the name that had been dusty for 100 years. There was a trace of tremor in her voice, but it was sweet and pleasant. Su Yueyao. Chapter 376. Su Yueyao. The Queen Mother of the West's voice was as gentle as water. There was a complicated look in her eyes. Su Yueyao. Su Yueyao. Ning Tian murmured softly, but the look in his eyes became brighter and brighter. This is obviously a very good name. Why did you seal it for 100 years? He was a little puzzled. He looked at the Queen Mother of the West. Because, when I decided to become the Queen Mother of the West of the Jade Lake sacred ground, I had already made up my mind to give up the previous plan. I also don't want to have the same surname as that woman. Only the 3 words Queen Mother of the West can make me always remember that the Jade Lake still needs me. The Queen Mother of the West said slowly. There was a trace of tiredness in her voice, but also a trace of determination. At this moment, behind her usual mischievous and charming face, there was a completely different face. Silly woman. Seeing this, Ning Tian couldn't help but smile, and a touch of gentleness flashed in his eyes. He rubbed the Queen Mother of the West's hair with his big hand and said softly, "But now, under your leadership, the Jade Lake has become very strong, hasn't it? You've worked very hard. More than anyone else. The entire Jade Lake sacred ground has achieved what it has today because of your effort. I believe that everyone in the Jade Lake sacred ground is grateful to you." Hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West was stunned for a moment, and the tight string in her heart seemed to be touched. She looked at Ning Tian. "Besides, you're my woman. You still have me behind you, don't you think?" Yueyao, as Ning Tian's voice fell, he looked at the Queen Mother of the West softly. No. It was not the Queen Mother of the West now. It was Su Yueyao. She was Ning Tian's woman. Hearing that someone called her name again after 100 years, and it was from the mouth of her beloved, Su Yueyao was stunned for a moment. A different kind of emotion flashed in her beautiful eyes, and her eyes were a little wet. Yes, she carried the name of the Queen Mother of the West, but she forgot her own name. She carried the responsibility of the Jade Lake for 100 years. When the Jade Lake was at its most helpless, she stood up. She was really too tired. Silly woman. I didn't expect the Jade Lake sacred leader to cry like a child. Ning Tian teased Su Yueyao in his arms. His eyes revealed a trace of gentleness as he gently stroked her hair. "Humph." Su Yueyao snorted, but her eyes were red. Anyway, she had already cried. He might as well pour out all the exhaustion he had accumulated over the past 100 years. Woo-woo. She buried her face in his broad and warm chest, releasing all her tiredness and a trace of grievance. All right. Good girl, Yueyao. Hubby is here. Woo-woo. Awoo. Woman, if you want to cry, just cry. Why did you bite me? Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Let's not talk about you anymore. Once I talk about you, you will bite me. Humph. 10 minutes later, rows of small teeth marks could be seen all over Ning Tian's chest. Although with the hardness of his body, this kind of situation would not appear at all, but if his little wife wanted to bite him, he could only not use his spiritual energy. It would be bad if he got hurt. Okay. Yueyao, be good. Ning Tian coaxed Su Yueyao in his arms as if he was coaxing a child. Look, hubby is not here. You just need to hide behind hubby and hubby will naturally protect you. Tisk in his arms. Su Yueyao raised her pretty face and rolled her eyes at Ning Tian. She pointed at his chest with her slender jade finger. You are only a 3-star divine emperor. How dare you say that you will protect me? I don't believe it. Do you mean hubby is very weak? Ning Tian's lips curled into a smile. Of course. At this time, Su Yueyao had not yet realized the seriousness of the matter. Her red lips parted slightly and she snorted. Hubby, you are very woo-woo. However, before she could finish her words, Ning Tian lowered his head and kissed her, blocking her lips. Su Yueyao struggled a few times but did not resist. After a long time, "Don't you feel tired?" Su Yueyao's pretty face still had a trace of redness. She looked at Ning Tian very seriously. Tired? Do you think I got the title Ning Buxu for nothing? Ning Tian spread his hands disapprovingly. For a moment, Su Yueyao was speechless. By the way, Yueyao. At this time, Ning Tian seemed to have thought of something and looked at Su Yueyao beside him. Hubby, what's wrong? Su Yueyao was stunned for a moment and looked at Ning Tian in confusion. You said you could also turn into a fox demon before. What do you mean? Could it be that you are now a demon? Ning Tian glanced behind Su Yueyao, coughed dryly, and said slowly, Old pervert. Indecent. Su Yueyao felt his gaze. After spitting, she took the quilt and covered her body. She was not as energetic as Ning Tian, who was as energetic as a bull. After everything was done, after carefully protecting herself, Sui Weiyao said softly, "In theory, it's possible. However, I am not a demon, although I have the essence blood of a nine-tailed fox in my body. But I'm not a demon. I'm a pure human." "Then why did you say you could also grow a foxtail?" Ning Tian asked curiously. He couldn't help but look behind her. The furry foxtail was so cute that he couldn't help but ask. "There is a difference between humans and demons. The difference is like heaven and earth. In other words, it's impossible for a human to become a demon. Even if all the blood in the body is replaced with demon blood, it's impossible to become a real demon. Similarly, it's impossible for a demon to become a real human." But, halfway through her sentence, Sui Weiyao smiled slightly and looked at Ning Tian. "But what?" Ning Tian couldn't help but be curious. "But, between the human clan and the demon clan, there is another body type. Although this body type is not as rare as your heavenly god body, it is still a rare body type," Sui Weiyao said softly. "That body is called a half-demon body. It can be a human or a demon." "Half-demon body?" Ning Tian raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but ask, "How to become a half-demon body?" "I don't know. Maybe there are records of this in the Charming Fox clan." Sui Weiyao shook her head. Then, a sly look flashed in her beautiful eyes. She looked at Ning Tian and teased, "Haha, when I mentioned that it can be a human or a demon, honey, you were excited, right?" She was a Nine Tribulations great emperor. She knew every change in Ning Tian. "Ahem." Ning Tian coughed and blushed. He was indeed a little excited just now. After all, there was another kind of fun. "Ahem. But, what's the benefit of becoming a half-demon body for you?" Ning Tian stopped joking and looked at Sui Weiyao. Compared to the fun, he was more concerned about the changes that becoming a half-demon body would bring to Sui Weiyao. Notice, due to some reasons, the name of the flame-sealing Lion King, Sha Bai, will be changed to Sha Tian. Please understand. Chapter 377. Become a half-demon? Sui Weiyao frowned. After thinking for a while, she said, "It will improve my physique, and allow me to have both spiritual energy and demonic aura like the demons." Demonic aura? Ning Tian thought for a while and nodded. Tianxian world. Spiritual energy was the main source of energy, but there were other types of energy as well. Demons could use both spiritual energy and demonic aura, while demons could use demonic aura. As for humans, they could only use spiritual energy. If Sui Weiyao could use both spiritual energy and demonic aura at the same time, her strength would be greatly improved and reach a new height. Moreover, if I become a half-demon, I should be able to reach the demigod realm, Sui Weiyao said slowly. Demigod realm? Ning Tian raised his eyebrows. Demigod realm. That meant that as long as she obtained the guide to becoming a god, she could become a god. Among the people he knew, only Luo Wuqing had reached the demigod realm. As for the empty god realm emperor, it was useless even if he reached the demigod realm. After all, he was completely empty. If his little wife could also reach the demigod realm, it would be good news. However, Ning Tian's eyes lit up. At this moment, he realized that his strength was far from enough. What he needed to do was to improve his strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, the gap between him and his two wives would widen. After all, his two wives were not to be trifled with. One was more heaven-defying than the other. If he did not catch up with them, he would be left behind when the ancient road to becoming a god opened. Thinking of this, Ning Tian's eyes became serious. It seemed that he had to hurry up and cultivate. He had to find Chun Gejiang. His cultivation speed was still too slow. In less than a year, he was only a 3-star divine emperor. This speed was still too slow. However, if the cultivators from the primal chaos imperial realm heard this, they would probably fly into a rage and vomit blood. Damn, Ning Buxu is acting like a human again. Sigh. Ning Tian sighed. Honey, what's wrong? Su Yueyao looked at him worriedly. I'm fine. Ning Tian waved his hand and looked at Su Yueyao. He said softly, it seems that I have to go to the charming fox clan. For the future of my little wife, I have to get my hands on this half-demon body. Su Yueyao raised her eyebrows and a smile appeared on her lip. Then she hugged the blanket and moved closer. Hubby, tell me, during a battle, do you think the fox demon form or the human form is stronger? Hearing this, Ning Tian replied without hesitation, of course it's the fox demon transformation. Being able to use both spirit chi and demon chi at the same time, wouldn't her combat power be even stronger? You don't even need to say that. Haha. The corner of Su Yueyao's mouth lifted slightly. She licked her red lips and let out a peal of bell-like laughter. She leaned over. No. I'm not talking about this combat power. I mean, hubby, your combat power. Ning Tian was stunned for a moment and looked over. A sly look appeared on her pretty face. Huh? At this moment, Ning Tian instantly understood. Then, it was raining down. A few days later, in a small attic of the Heaven and Earth Inn. Fellow Taoist Ning, please. Chen Gejiang smiled and handed the brewed tea to Ning Tian, who was sitting opposite him. Ning Tian nodded slightly, then picked up the tea that Chen Gejiang brewed, took a sip and savored it carefully. Fellow Taoist Ning, how is the tea? Chen Gejiang looked at Ning Tian with a smile on his face and asked. It's all right. Ning Tian put down the teacup, curled his lips, and said casually, it's not as good as the tea made by my two wives. Chen Gejiang was stunned for a moment, then shook his head with a bitter smile. He waved the folding fan in his hand slightly and sighed. I'm afraid only fellow Taoist Ning can say that my heavenly secret tea is average. His heavenly secret tea. It was made of immortal level tea leaves. Mortals could live for 100 years after taking a sip. The leaders of ordinary forces were not qualified to drink it even if they wanted to. So, why is the heavenly secret pavilion leader looking for me? Ning Tian looked at Chen Gejiang and asked with a frown. In fact, he didn't like to interact with mysterious people. He couldn't see through them and they hid too well. He couldn't even tell if they were friends or foes. It was too tiring to deal with such people. Naturally, it's because of fellow Taoist Ning's physique. Chen Gejiang didn't talk nonsense. He stopped waving the folding fan in his hand, put it on the table, and looked at Ning Tian. Huh. Hearing the word physique, Ning Tian frowned. The spiritual energy in his body surged at this moment, and he immediately became vigilant. Heavenly God physique. As soon as Chen Gejiang's voice fell, Ning Tian's eyes instantly sharpened, and his aura locked onto the former's body. At the same time, in the void, a force also appeared and directly locked onto Chen Gejiang. Haha! Chen Gejiang's face was calm and he chuckled. You two don't have to be so nervous. I peek into the secrets of heaven. It's easy to find out who the heavenly god physique is 10,000 years in the future. Don't worry, I have no ill intentions towards you. While talking and laughing, Chen Gejiang's aura didn't surge at all. Seeing this, Ning Tian frowned slightly. Although he didn't let down his guard, he didn't make too many movements. He said softly to the void, Yueyao, keep an eye on this guy. If there's anything wrong, just do it. Okay. Su Yueyao's voice sounded out of nowhere. Ha ha ha, there's no need. After all, I'm just a nobody who peeks into the secrets of heaven. Chen Gejiang chuckled, picked up the heavenly secret tea, and took a sip. Then, he looked up at Ning Tian. Taoist Ning, to be honest, you and I are friends, not enemies. You're the 10th heavenly god physique I've seen in the past 1,000,000 years. The 10th? 1,000,000 years. Hearing this, Ning Tian was surprised. He had heard from Sansheng that he wasn't the only one who had the heavenly god physique. There were others. Now that he heard it, it was indeed so. However, 1,000,000 years, you've seen 10 heavenly god physiques in 1,000,000 years. Why aren't you dead yet? How can you live for so long? Ning Tian frowned. Pft! Chen Gejiang, who was tasting the heavenly secret tea, spat out a mouthful of tea when he heard this. He wiped his mouth. Daoist Ning, is there something strange about what you're focusing on? I just peeked into some secrets of heaven and made some deals with some untouchable existences. Chen Gejiang shook his head. There was a hint of complicated emotions in his eyes. That was not all. It's not necessarily a good thing to live for 1,000,000 years. Life and death are no longer in my hands. And I only have one mission. Every time a heavenly god physique appears, I have to make him stronger and guide him on the ancient road to godhood. And I have another identity besides being the master of the heavenly secret pavilion. That is... Chapter 378. Heavenly God Guide. Chen Gejiang's voice was filled with a trace of loneliness. For millions of years, he had never been invincible. All he had was life, a life for a mission. He had witnessed the brilliance of countless geniuses, but unfortunately, their brilliance would eventually be annihilated. Heavenly God Guide, hearing this, Ning Tian murmured, "Fellow Taoist Ning, you have to know that the existence of the heavenly god body is extremely heaven-defying. Every heavenly god body owner is extremely powerful. You will eventually have to fight." Chen Gejiang looked at Ning Tian seriously. Fight with the heavenly god body? Hearing this, Ning Tian frowned. Su Yueyao, who was hiding in the void, was a lot more nervous. Every heavenly god body owner was extraordinary. You will definitely fight. There can be many heavenly god bodies, but only one person can have the final qualification. Although the heavenly god body is strong, it is ruthless. Chen Gejiang shook his head. However, fellow Taoist Ning, don't worry. The time is not right. The battle between heavenly gods can only be in the god realm. The final qualification? What is it? Ning Tian was not afraid of anything. His eyes were still very calm, but he frowned slightly at Chen Gejiang. Chen Gejiang just chuckled a few times and did not answer. This was also the reason why Ning Tian was very unhappy to deal with these people. They had no beginning and no end, leaving nothing but mystery. "Hubby, do you want to beat him up and force him to say it?" In the void, Su Yueyao's voice sounded. Hearing this, Ning Tian pondered for a moment. His little wife's words seemed to make sense. Should he really beat him up? Cough. Fellow Taoist Ning and fellow Taoist Su, your idea is a bit dangerous. Even if you beat me up, I can only say one thing. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. On the side, Chen Gejiang coughed and said, You eavesdropping? Ning Tian's eyes flashed with a fierce light and his gaze fell on Chen Gejiang. Chen Gejiang was speechless. He shook his folding fan and helplessly shook his head. Fellow Taoist Ning, next time you say you want to beat me up, please don't say it in front of me, Su Yueyao, Ning Tian. Cough, cough. So, why did the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's master seek me out? Ning Tian looked at Chen Gejiang. Naturally, it is to fulfill my mission as the Heavenly God's Guide. Chen Gejiang chuckled. Then his eyes flashed with a hint of awe. In a month, a pseudo-divine tool will be born in the Black Earth Dead Mountain. When the time comes, all of the major powers will be on the move. Perhaps even the eternal demon realm and the endless devil abyss will send people over. Their goal is the other half of the divine artifact, the Death Bell. Demigod artifact, Death Bell? Ning Tian frowned. As his strength increased, he gradually understood that there were semi-divine artifacts and divine artifacts above the immortal artifacts. However, was there a need to mobilize so many forces just for a lesser relic? Even the other two clans of the firmament territory were alarmed? Fellow Taoist Ning, what really attracted them is not the semi-divine artifact. Qin Gaijiang chuckled. As a heavenly god body, you should understand the rules of heaven and earth better, right? Hearing this, Ning Tian nodded slightly. The only rule of heaven and earth he could master was the divine thunder. Annihilation with one palm was like thousands of thunder tribulations. Rules of heaven and earth, Ning Tian murmured. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something. His eyes narrowed as he looked at Qin Gaijiang. Could it be that the semi-divine tool contains the rules of heaven and earth? Only the rules of heaven and earth could move these experts. Exactly. Qin Gaijiang smiled. And the rules of heaven and earth contained in the death bell are death. Death rules. Hiss. Hearing Qin Gaijiang's words, Ning Tian and Sui Weiao could not help but gasp. If the rules of heaven and earth were the most powerful, then death must be the first to bear the brunt. Controlling life and death. If I want you to die more, you will die more. This was simply invincible. I see. No wonder so many forces want to take it for themselves. The surprise in Ning Tian's eyes gradually receded, and a flash of light flashed in his eyes. It seemed that he must obtain this death bell. Ordinary rules would have a significant effect under the blessing of the heavenly god physique. Even if he could not directly control life and death, it was not impossible when he was strong enough. How about it? Does fellow Taoist Ning have any plans? The corners of Qin Gaijiang's mouth curled up in a smile as he looked at Ning Tian. Ning Tian nodded. If he did not want good things, would he still be a founder? After all, he just felt that the death bell was fated to be with him. Then that's it. In addition, I have come to a conclusion after 1,000,000 years of observation. Among the 10 heavenly god physiques, I am more optimistic about Taoist Ning, haha. Qin Gaijiang laughed and then turned to leave. Wait. Ning Tian stopped him. So, you still have the same words? Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed? Yes. There is a saying that heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. When Taoist Ning's fate arrives, you will naturally know everything. For example, For example? Ning Tian frowned. Haha, heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Next, we will wait for Taoist Ning to explore by himself, haha. However, this damn fortune-teller waved his folding fan, unwilling to say another word. Damn it. As expected, he is still curious. Little wife, go. This damn fortune-teller, if we can't beat him to death, let's beat him up first. All right. The power of the husband and wife together was extraordinary. TSK. Taoist Ning, let's talk nicely. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. F*CK, this damn fortune-teller, little wife, beat him up. Taoist, it doesn't matter if you beat me up, but don't hurt my face. After a while. Phew, this guy still managed to escape. Ning Tian shook his head. In the end, he did not ask anything, but he did not really expect to find out. He just wanted to beat him up first. Yueao, let's go. It's time to tell Enai Hongyi and Tian Xiang about our whereabouts. Ning Tian held Su Yueao's hand, and the two walked out of the attic. Soon, they saw Enai Hongyi and the others on the first floor of the Heaven and Earth Inn. Ancestral Master, and Sacred Master, where have you been these days? Enai Hongyi looked over and could not help but be surprised. She thought that the two of them had disappeared in the past few days. It's nothing. I'm just consolidating our relationship as husband and wife, Ning Tian said casually, looking at the other women. Where is that lion? Where is the fiery lion king? Ning Tian frowned slightly. Oh, the fiery lion said that it seemed to have comprehended something and felt the call of something, and then ran to the top floor of the Heaven and Earth Inn, Yu Qin muttered and said. Comprehended? Felt the call of something? Ning Tian frowned. But at this moment, the entire Heaven and Earth Inn suddenly began to shake. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.